Chapter 2572. The return of Ancestor Lu meant that the pure Yang Palace was no longer a soft persimmon that could be kneaded by others. The most obvious external manifestation was the sudden appearance of thousands of tribulation true immortals in the pure Yang Palace. They were all beautiful women with wood properties. Their cultivations were average, and they were all tribulation true immortals. Moreover, they were not rookies who had just entered the tribulation true immortal realm. They were all veterans. The appearance of this group of female disciples shocked all the sect that paid attention to Chunyang Palace. Just when everyone was wondering what Chunyang Palace was going to do, another piece of news came out that these women had once appeared in the spiritual realm. Of course, this was the internal news of each supersect, and the outside world did not know about it. The leaders of each sect who had obtained this information immediately became busy and began to seek confirmation. These tribulation true immortals were, of course, Madame Bai's maids. Some of them had appeared in Samsara Valley and Dongxian sect to support Hua Xing and Hu Yuexian at that time. Both sect knew about the existence of these female experts. At that time, almost all the sect knew that there was a team of Xian immortals in Chunyang Palace, and all of them were women. However, no one expected that the cultivation of these women was not at the Xian immortal realm, but at the tribulation true immortal realm. Wuji Demon School knew more about this. Elder Su from Wuji Demon School recognized that Madame Bai's veil was made by Ancestor Lu, so he was sure that Madame Bai must have a deep relationship with Ancestor Lu. Now, Elder Su's speculation had become reality, or at least half of it had become reality. Those women were all tribulation true immortals, so it was almost certain that they must have a relationship with Ancestor Lu. All the sect were guessing what had happened in the spiritual realm at that time, and why so many experts had sealed their cultivation and descended to the spiritual realm. To be honest, when they first heard the news, all the sect were shocked. With the power in Yang Chen's hands, no one in the spiritual realm could stop him if he wanted to do anything in the spiritual realm. Fortunately, apart from refining the demon realm, Yang Chen did not do anything out of line. After all, Yang Chen had always seemed to know his place in the mortal world. He had never challenged the bottom line of any major sect. Even if there was competition, it was in the open, and there was even room for bargaining. He had never bullied others. With a good reputation, Chunyang Palace and Yang Chen were once again accepted by the major sect, or to a certain extent. At least, the major sects did not immediately break up with him because he suddenly showed his muscles. Instead, they pretended that nothing had happened and observed secretly to see what Chunyang Palace was going to do. Of course, Ancestor Lu did not appear. If Ancestor Lu were to appear, it wouldn't just be the major sects that would panic, but the entire heavenly court. The first auction of the Wanbao Tower held by Chunyang Palace was held as scheduled, and it attracted the attention of all parties. All kinds of rare materials were sold at a good price, but what was more surprising was the auction of the high concentration of devil chi and demon aura. The representatives of the major sect competed fiercely, and they were competing to be the first to bid, which made the practitioners who did not know what was going on think that it was the auction of the sacred jade. Since when did the ordinary devil chi and demon aura become so popular? There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall. As Yang Chen sold more prescriptions, the news naturally spread. When no one paid attention to it before, no one would pay attention to it. Now, it was obvious that the devil chi and demon aura were very abnormal, so the prescription of the barrier-dispelling pill soon spread throughout the immortal realm. The barrier-dispelling pill, which could help people get through the bottleneck of an innumerable tribulation true immortal, had been personally verified by the elixir masters of the major sect. As soon as the news spread, it caused the whole immortal realm to go crazy. The first reaction of the practitioners who failed to buy the prescription was to ask the disciples of the Chunyang Palace where they could buy this kind of elixir. Chunyang Palace responded quickly. After the first auction, They immediately announced that there would be an auction of the barrier-dispelling pill every 10 days. This news alone attracted the innumerable tribulation true immortals from all over the immortal realm. Almost instantly, the Wanbao Tower became one of the most sought-after businesses in the immortal realm. After the auction, it was time for Yang Chen and the major sect to confirm the transaction of the high concentration of devil chi and demon aura. Yang Chen was very straightforward. He directly stated the price for the transaction of the large amount of devil chi and demon aura. After all, the shortage of devil chi and demon aura was not like the shortage of the sacred jade in the past. Therefore, it was impossible for the devil chi and demon aura to be sold according to the auction price. The competition at the auction was just a gesture of the major sect to show respect to Yang Chen. Of course, Yang Chen would not ignore it. Therefore, he immediately got a reward. The devil chi and demon aura of the large amount of devil chi and demon aura could be used to refine 100 barrier-dispelling pills. The devil chi and demon aura of the large amount of devil chi would be traded at 1/3 of the auction price. The major sect could ask for as much as they wanted 1 month in advance, and they would pick up the goods at that time. The price and attitude satisfied all parties, and they immediately placed a large order. In Yang Chen's opinion, the quantity of the order was enough for them to refine at least 10 barrier-dispelling pills for each innumerable tribulation true immortal in the sect. Yang Chen was very satisfied. This was also one of his purposes. The barrier-dispelling pill could be said to be a large amount of consumables that Yang Chen had prepared for the immortal realm in the spiritual realm. Each innumerable tribulation true immortal needed to take it once every 1,000 years. Besides the disciples of the major sect, there were a large number of innumerable tribulation true immortals in the immortal realm. The rest of them were enough to bring continuous benefits to Yang Chen and Chunyang Palace. The preparation for the auction and the subsequent transactions took 5 years, and Yang Chen had been operating in the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace for 5 years. If those nominal disciples who joined Chunyang Palace before still had a bit of luck in their hearts and planned to run away at any time when the situation was not good, now they had been completely convinced by Chunyang Palace and were determined to join Chunyang Palace. These nominal disciples were responsible for such chores, and the internal affairs of the sect were handled by Madame Bai's maids. Yang Chen was temporarily the palace master of Chunyang Palace, and the framework of the whole Chunyang Palace was completely set up. Even if the disciples of Chunyang Palace in the spiritual realm would soon ascend to immortality, they would no longer be as embarrassed as before. More than 1,000 innumerable tribulation true immortals had at least made Chunyang Palace a third-rate sect in the immortal realm. It was believed that as time went by, more and more disciples from the spiritual realm would ascend to immortality, and the scale of Chunyang Palace would also increase and grow into a real behemoth. While Chunyang Palace was running normally, Yang Chen was also busy. He needed to refine the integrated Great Yin-Yang 5 Elements flying sword, refine the immortal execution platform, maintain the 3-star alchemy furnace, and treat the injury of Neza. These alone were enough to keep Yang Chen busy. Chapter 2573. Yang Chen didn't know who the Tao ancestor was looking for, but he was sure that it was definitely a big shot. Moreover, it was at least a big shot who was on par with Ancestor Lu and Neza, or even better. After the Tao ancestor left, Ancestor Lu was still fine and seemed to be relatively calm. However, Neza seemed to be a little impatient. He even urged Yang Chen to speed up the process of refining pills and healing his injuries. Yang Chen understood Neza's mentality. Ever since he knew that there was a koan, Neza couldn't sit still. Challenging a strong enemy was Neza's greatest pleasure. He was even more interested in it than dealing with those bastards of the new heavenly court. After the Tao ancestor said that the old heavenly court had to be changed, Ancestor Lu and Neza no longer had much interest in these guys of the new heavenly court. Even if there were, they would only find a few powerful people to kill in the future to vent their hatred. However, now that there was a Kun, Neza's desire to fight was immediately aroused. From what Yang Chen did, he experienced some feelings that were completely different from what he had felt in the past. He needed an intense battle to deepen his understanding. However, no matter how anxious he was, Neza couldn't ignore his injuries. That was why he was a little anxious during this period of time. It was Yang Chen who noticed that something was wrong. He had a deep conversation with Neza and persuaded Neza to calm down with the principle that more haste, less speed. After comforting Neza, Yang Chen had no choice but to start worrying about his own ancestor Lu. That was because Ancestor Lu was actually very tempted. It was the feeling of an expert meeting his opponent. It was just that he acted calmly, so no one could tell. However, in a few private conversations with Yang Chen, Ancestor Lu showed great interest in the core sect. Yang Chen finally knew the true thoughts of his ancestor. Because of this, Ancestor Lu was ridiculed by Madame Bai. She ridiculed that he was inferior to Neza and didn't mean what he said. Since the two bosses had such an attitude, Yang Chen would certainly support it. It was also a great advantage for Chunyang Palace to settle the core mountain gate. At least, Yang Chen would no longer have to worry about the safety of the sect and could do something he wanted to do. Therefore, Yang Chen invited Ancestor Lu and Neza to have a deep discussion and determined a plan to capture Kun. Of course, it was just a simple plan without any specific step. In fact, it was more appropriate to call it a long-term plan. In this plan, Ancestor Lu and Great God Neza had their own task. Neza's purpose was very simple. It was to heal and refine his natal Dharma treasure to increase his combat strength. That was fundamental. If he didn't have the ability to fight, he would just be sending himself to death. Neza accepted this arrangement obediently. Also, Neza had another important mission, which was to get reinforcements. For example, he had mentioned Yang Jian before. The more masters like him, the better. Ancestor Lu and Neza might not be able to deal with that Kun. With Yang Jian, it was just a little more insurance, but they still didn't have the confidence to win. But Neza was also having a headache. Yang Chen loved dogs as much as his life. His celestial dog was beheaded by Yang Chen. How could he reconcile this? But both Yang Chen and Ancestor Lu put this pressure on Neza, who asked him to have a good relationship with Yang Jian before. Ancestor Lu's task was also very simple, or it sounded very simple, but it was very difficult to do. It was because Ancestor Lu was not injured now. Everything was in the best state, so he was assigned the task of reconnaissance. He wanted to go to the large area designated by Yang Chen to find the location of Kun and carefully explore the extent of Kun's combat strength. This was a dangerous job. If he was not careful and Kun felt that he was hostile, no matter how strong Ancestor Lu was, he was afraid that he would lose a layer of skin. With a clear task, Ancestor Lu and Neza both calmed down and began to prepare. Ancestor Lu took Madame Bai and dozens of maids to scout. Under Madame Bai's invitation, all of Yang Chen's wives and concubines were taken away by Madame Bai. She said that she wanted them to see the world. This was a rare opportunity for the women to broaden their horizons. Especially with Madame Bai's guidance, it was a heaven-sent opportunity for any cultivator. None of the women refused and left with Madame Bai happily. They didn't miss the look of their husband asking them to stay at all. God Neza liked this arrangement very much. Yang Chen was good in every aspect. His alchemy skills were not bad, and he respected the elders enough. It was just that he liked to show off the women around him when he had nothing to do. This made Neza, who had been single for a long time, very unhappy. If they were just some ordinary women, Neza would not be so unbalanced. However, any of the women around Yang Chen was a national beauty. Each of them had their own charm, and each of them had good talent. Their cultivation was also excellent, so Neza could not even say a word of ridicule. Now that all the women around Yang Chen were taken away, Yang Chen had no capital to show off. Although the frequency of Yang Chen's treatment of his wounds would not increase, at least he wouldn't be shocked by the scene of Yang Chen always having a beautiful woman around him before alchemy. Yang Chen's own task was even simpler. To put it bluntly, it was to improve his cultivation. With Yang Chen's current cultivation of the Golden Immortal Realm, even though Kwa Yi's secret method had entered the Third Realm and many Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals were no match for him, but under the situation where there were innumerable tribulation true immortals everywhere, Yang Chen's strength was not enough, let alone facing Kuan Peng. Therefore, improving his strength became an urgent requirement for Yang Chen. Naturally, while improving his strength, Yang Chen couldn't forget to treat Neza's wounds. This was also what he should do. According to LV Zhu and Yang Chen's estimation, this process would take about 300 years. This was necessary. Neza's injuries could not improve by leaps and bounds, unless he could get 1 or 2 9 turns golden elixirs immediately. The problem was, with the relationship between Yang Chen and the major sect, it was not impossible to get the 9 turns golden elixirs. But Neza didn't want to destroy the new understanding that he had obtained with great difficulty. He still had to rely on Yang Chen's most primitive means to recover. In addition to helping Neza recover, Yang Chen also needed to refine the Immortal Beheading Saber and the Immortal Beheading Stage. Without hundreds of years, he didn't even need to think about it. Fortunately, he had the primordial elixir to help him with his cultivation. Otherwise, Yang Chen would definitely worry about how to improve his cultivation in the midst of so many things. The three of them began to get busy, but soon Yang Chen encountered a new trouble, or it should not be called trouble. The reason was very simple. The barrier-dispelling elixirs sold by Wanbao Tower were sold so fast that a large number of elixirs that Yang Chen had refined before were not enough to sell. Moreover, buyers were still pouring in from everywhere. Under the heavy pressure, Wanbao Tower had to ask Yang Chen to refine elixirs for them. Chapter 2574. Yang Chen hadn't practiced alchemy normally for a long time. After ascending to the immortal realm, Yang Chen had been practicing alchemy in reverse since he discovered the 3-star alchemy furnace. He had been practicing alchemy in reverse, completely releasing the medicinal power to nourish the 3-star alchemy furnace. In the later stage, there was Neza, so he spared no effort to stimulate the medicinal qi in the medicinal materials. He did not restrain it, but released it as much as possible. This method of alchemy was completely the opposite of normal alchemy, but it was extremely good for the maintenance of the alchemy furnace and Neza's injury. This also led to Yang Chen trying to find ways to stimulate the medicinal power in the medicinal materials as much as possible. In the past 100 years, he had almost reached the extreme. For more than 100 years, Yang Chen had not practiced alchemy normally. Suddenly, Wanbao Tower asked him for help. Yang Chen was also a little itchy, so he naturally agreed. Of course, the prescription of the barrier-dispelling pill was definitely given to the medicine hall of Chunyang Palace. There were also alchemists refining it, but compared with the elixirs refined by Master Yang himself, these alchemists were not famous enough. However, when he really started to practice alchemy normally, Yang Chen realized what his reverse alchemy had brought him in the past 100 years. Because he wanted to maximize the medicinal power in the medicinal materials, Yang Chen also tried his best in the process of reverse alchemy. Under what circumstances could the greatest medicinal power of various medicinal materials be stimulated? What kind of fire and what kind of technique should be used? Yang Chen almost did his best to study. When he practiced alchemy normally, everything was reversed. Yang Chen would naturally pay attention to the part of the medicinal power in the process of alchemy. Then, Yang Chen found that there were some places that he had never thought of when he practiced alchemy normally, especially the places where the medicinal power was diffused. It could be greatly improved. This was a surprising discovery, which also made Yang Chen realize that his previous efforts were not in vain. Even when normal alchemy could not improve his alchemy strength, the process of reverse alchemy allowed him to find many places that could continue to improve perfectly. At Yang Chen's alchemy level, if he wanted to go further, it was almost an extravagant hope. Unless his cultivation base was greatly improved and he directly attacked the 9th grade alchemist master, otherwise, the 8th grade alchemist master was already the limit. No matter how hard he tried to study alchemy, he was still stuck in a dead end, and it was likely that he would not be able to get out for the rest of his life. Many of the Immortal World's Grade 8 pill refinement masters were trapped in this realm, unable to break through no matter what, going around in circles in this realm their entire lives. Countless cultivators were stuck in a dead end when they wanted to break through. In fact, the path of alchemy was the same as the way of alchemy. They also paid attention to a balance between work and rest. In the path of alchemy they could not break through. Yang Chen was also aware of this problem, so he had not started alchemy since entering the immortal realm, in order to find this feeling for himself. Nourishing the alchemy furnace was a deliberate action after encountering it. Anyway, it was not a formal alchemy, so Yang Chen could play with it however he wanted. After encountering Neza, he had to find ways to disperse the medicinal power in order to increase the healing effect. Unexpectedly, this inadvertent action gave Yang Chen an unexpected surprise. The experience brought by reverse alchemy could be used in normal alchemy. As long as the experience was used in reverse, it could make up for the parts that he did not consider in the past alchemy or the parts that he had never considered. When it came to alchemy, Yang Chen was not only familiar with it, but also had a feeling of being able to use it with ease. Whether it was the fire seed or the medicinal ingredients, whether it was alchemy or the method of alchemy, they were becoming more and more proficient. The barrier-dispelling pill was not a very complicated elixir. It was just that the high concentration of devil qi and demon qi was difficult to find, and it was also difficult to deal with. After all, it was also a great challenge for the alchemists to affect the concentration of the true immortal qi in the innumerable tribulation true immortal qi. Therefore, so far, except for Yang Chen, only the 9th-level alchemists in each sect could refine it. Ordinary alchemists could not bear such high concentration of devil qi and demon qi at all. However, these troubles were not troubles for Yang Chen at all. The concentration of devil qi and demon qi used by the alchemists in each sect was a bit lower than that used by Yang Chen, unlike Yang Chen, who directly used solid magic crystals and demon crystals to refine. The medicinal ingredients were of high quality, and Yang Chen's alchemy technique was getting better and better, so the effect of this batch of barrier-dispelling pills was surprisingly good. This good effect was not the same as the 9 turns barrier-dispelling golden elixir made by the 9th-level alchemists, which almost made the user die. Instead, it was a great improvement to the user's mental state during the tempering of the inner demon. When the user could overcome the inner demon brought by the barrier-dispelling pill, it meant that a small bottleneck had been overcome. After that, it would be a smooth journey until the next bottleneck arrived. Yang Chen couldn't stop alchemy from the beginning until he was addicted to it. When Yang Chen finally had his fill, he had refined almost tens of thousands of barrier-dispelling pills. It seems that your alchemy level has improved again. When Yang Chen was refining elixirs, Neza had been watching. Even though he had not seen the scene of Yang Chen refining elixirs before, Neza had eaten the elixirs refined by Yang Chen. With Neza's eyesight, he could still see the level of elixirs refined by Yang Chen. I was lucky. Yang Chen was not modest in front of Neza and directly admitted it. However, Neza was not an alchemist, so there was no need to tell him too much about alchemy. Have you ever thought about what you would do if Yang Jian was not willing to let you go? Neza's original intention was not to discuss the problem of alchemy with Yang Chen, but to think about how to hook up with Yang Jian. This was a big problem. Yang Jian was definitely not a good-tempered person. If he was forced into a corner, he would even dare to challenge his uncle, the Jade Emperor. He was even more powerful than Neza, who chased after his own father. Yang Jian loved his dog as much as his life. In the face of Yang Chen, who was his enemy, Neza really did not know how he would deal with it. For every injustice there is a perpetrator. For every debt there is a debtor. This was the first time that Yang Chen said these words, not before killing someone. We all know who the real enemy is. If Yang Jian really wants to hold on to this matter, I'm afraid I can only choose to resist. I can't just wash my neck and stretch it out, right? Yes. Neza could not let Yang Chen take the initiative to think about it, so he did not mention this question anymore. He changed the topic and asked, "If I know where the old guy's pagoda is, what do you think I should do with it after I succeed?" Chapter 2575. The Old Guy's Pagoda? Yang Chen immediately knew it was Heavenly King Li's wishful pagoda. The Zhao family had tried to tempt Yang Chen with this before. They'd wanted to trade for the map, but Yang Chen had rejected them. Later, he'd met Neza. Yang Chen had told Neza about the news. At the time, Neza had been severely injured. He hated the Zhao family to the core, but there was nothing he could do. Now that he'd suddenly mentioned this, it seemed like he wanted to slowly train by killing. Heavenly King Li's pagoda was probably the only powerful artifact that could counter Neza. Or rather, it was able to counter Neza's treasures when his cultivation was lower than Neza's. Heavenly King Li had relied on this pagoda to subdue Neza. Otherwise, Heavenly King Li would have died a long time ago. Was there a need to ask what to do with the pagoda? Yang Chen answered without hesitation, "If we can destroy it, of course we'll destroy it." Neza looked at Yang Chen in surprise. He suddenly smiled and asked, "What? You don't want it?" "Yes, I want it to death," Yang Chen answered honestly. After spending so many years with Neza, Yang Chen knew Neza's temper. Sometimes, he wouldn't dislike the truth. If he tried to suck up to him, Neza wouldn't like it. This was why Yang Chen had told the truth all those years ago that he had a group of dragon friends. Even if Neza hated the dragons, he wouldn't vent his anger on Yang Chen. Who wouldn't want Heavenly King Li's pagoda? If he asked himself honestly, he would be a fool not to want it. Perhaps experts at the level of Dao ancestors and Ancestor Lu might not be able to catch their eye, but when things were delivered to their doorstep, they might not refuse. But would Yang Chen dare to take it? However, this artifact was a little sensitive. Although Yang Chen had told the truth, he was still a little worried. After all, he was Neza's nemesis. With that pagoda, he could almost survive under Neza's hands. He could even threaten Neza. It was understandable if Neza misunderstood. "Since that's the case, it will belong to you after we get it." To Yang Chen's surprise, Neza gave the ownership of the pagoda to Yang Chen without any warning, which made Yang Chen confused for a while. "Belong to me?" Yang Chen couldn't believe his ears. Did Neza really say that? Is he testing me by giving me the only Dharma treasure that can counter Neza? Of course. Neza nodded seriously. "It's just a magic treasure that I can't use. Why not give it to you? I want to know, if you obtain the pagoda, what will you do with it?" "Are you serious?" Yang Chen could not help but ask Neza for confirmation. Seeing that Neza nodded seriously again, Yang Chen dared to believe that Neza really wanted to give him the pagoda. Although Yang Chen still did not know where the pagoda was, Neza's words meant that he was 90% sure. Why? Even if Neza was not serious and joking, Yang Chen did not dare to ignore it. What's more, Neza was so serious. Was there any unknown reason? "Why do you think?" Neza suddenly raised his voice and shouted at Yang Chen, "Because there's a shameless, cowardly man who does all kinds of things. He lied to me and insisted on giving his disciples a gift. Why do you think?" It turned out to be like this. Yang Chen was relieved. It turned out that it was Ancestor Lu who gave him the honor. At that time, when Ancestor Lu promised to give a gift to Neza, Yang Chen was also present. This reason made people feel relieved. A smile immediately appeared on Yang Chen's face. In that case, I will accept it. Thank you, Senior. Ah. Yang Chen's face immediately bloomed with a smile, and he agreed without hesitation, as if Neza could already take out the pagoda at this moment. You're so shameless. You've really inherited the teachings of your shameless, cowardly ancestor. Neza looked at Yang Chen with disdain and teased. As soon as you heard that you want to give me a gift, you immediately called me Senior and Senior. You're very practical. You flatter me. Yang Chen didn't fall out with Neza because he said that he and Ancestor Lu were shameless. Instead, his face was full of smiles. I only learned a little bit from my ancestor, and I dare not say that I inherited it. You flatter me. Is this pagoda for me alone or for our whole family? What do you think? Neza was speechless by Yang Chen for a long time. He pointed at Yang Chen and did not know what to say. After a while, he said bitterly, "Sure enough, like ancestor, like younger generation. Jackals of the same tribe." After a pause to calm down, he asked, "Still the same question, what are you going to do with it?" "I plan to absorb the fire seed in the pagoda myself, and then give the pagoda to Xiao Tian to refine." Since this was a gift from Neza and not a trap, then Yang Chen could say it according to his own ideas without hiding it. "You also know that my hobby is to absorb the fire seeds. As for the pagoda, Xiao Tian has already integrated 2 dragon pagodas. I think he doesn't mind integrating another powerful pagoda. As long as Xiao Tian appeared, he would bring the dragon pagoda with him." Neza was very clear about this. Neza's hatred for the dragon race gave him a deep understanding of the dragon race. The dragon pagoda on Xiao Tian's tail was obviously not ordinary, and it was not the same style. Neza did not ask before, but now Yang Chen said the answer himself. It was because of the integration of 2 dragon pagodas. Moreover, Yang Chen did not hide that if he got Li Tian's pagoda, he would let Xiao Tian integrate and refine it. Hearing Yang Chen's words, Neza was stunned. He did not expect Yang Chen to not control it himself, but to give it to Xiao Tian. Ordinary cultivators would try to refine the pagoda and then try to control Neza. Only Yang Chen did not care about it. Why? Neza frowned and asked, "If someone else got the pagoda, they would definitely do it differently than you." "No reason." Yang Chen suddenly sighed and said, "Because you want to give it to me without thinking. That means I trust you." Neza said with a smile, "You don't want to let me down? That's a little interesting." Yang Chen did not deny it, but in the end, he still told the truth. But the more important reason is that maybe the legend we heard before was wrong. The pagoda is not as powerful as we thought. Why do you think so? Neza was interested and asked while touching his chin. Chapter 2576. If that pagoda is really that powerful and can trap you, how did you get the chance to kill a few thousand experts and escape to the Immortal slaying platform? Yang Chen smiled. You were probably sent into the Immortal slaying platform a long time ago. You didn't sneak in. What's there to be suspicious about? Neza snorted. Don't you know what level of cultivation you need to be to use this pagoda normally? Do you think any cultivator can use it? That's exactly why there's a problem. Yang Chen answered without even thinking. The person who captured Heavenly King Li alive must have a higher cultivation than him, right? Heavenly King Li was sent into the Immortal slaying platform alive, which meant he was captured alive. Just as Yang Chen said, the person who captured Heavenly King Li alive must have a higher cultivation than him, so they could definitely use his pagoda. If they still couldn't capture Neza, it would be strange if there wasn't a problem. By the time they thought of using the pagoda to deal with me, they wouldn't be able to find me. Neza snorted disdainfully. It's better to hope that a bunch of scheming fellows can unite against a common enemy at the first moment than to hope that the Jade Emperor is more powerful than me and the Three-Eyed Man in a one-on-one fight. This time, Yang Chen had nothing to say. He could only listen to Neza in silence. It seemed like Neza was in the mood to talk, so there was no harm in listening. This level of gossip wasn't easy to hear. Actually, you guessed correctly. Neza praised Yang Chen in the end. That pagoda doesn't mean anything to me. It's even more ridiculous that it can restrain me. Even if the old man used his full strength, he could only block my fire-tipped spear at most. Although Yang Chen had vaguely guessed the truth, he still couldn't believe it when Neza said it himself. His face was full of disbelief. The legends of the immortal world really couldn't stand up to scrutiny. It really was just a legend. Then why is there such a legend? Yang Chen couldn't help but ask. At a time like this, they needed someone to support them so that they could continue the topic and reveal more gossip. If I don't say that, what else can I do? Neza glanced at Yang Chen, seemingly dissatisfied that he couldn't even figure this out. Can I really kill the old guy? At the end of the day, no matter how brutal and violent Neza was, he was not crazy enough to kill his own father. Even though he had already pretended to chase after him, Yang Chen could imagine that Neza had countless opportunities to attack along the way. Not to mention how fast the windfire wheels were. Could Li Jing outrun the windfire wheels? However, the red heavenly silk had the attribute of ignoring space. So what if Li Jing ran fast? If Neza hadn't let him go, would he have been able to escape to that big shot? That big shot probably knew the key to this, so he tactfully took out a pagoda and gave it to Li Jing, saying that it was a treasure that could restrain Neza. Neza had willingly put on an act with that big shot, allowing Heavenly King Li to survive. The existence of the pagoda is just a way for me and the old guy to step down. That's all. Neza snorted coldly. Who knew that the rumors outside would get more and more mysterious? Do they really think that I'm afraid of a small Dharma treasure? Outsiders said that Neza was an unreasonable and ferocious person who even wanted to kill his own father, but they never thought that there was something fishy about it. Yang Chen could tell from some clues. In addition, Neza had originally planned to give the pagoda to Yang Chen's family as a greeting gift. That was why he told him these secrets. Of course, there was no lack of intention to test Yang Chen. Fortunately, Yang Chen's performance was worthy of Neza's trust. So it's just for show. Fortunately, I didn't agree to exchange with those guys from the Zhao family, Yang Chen said exaggeratedly. He even patted his chest to show his fear. However, his exaggerated actions were clearly fake. Everyone knew that Yang Chen had never thought about exchanging the pagoda with the Zhao family. As expected, Yang Chen didn't say anything nice next. He directly questioned Neza, "But you only gave me this for show. You even said it was a greeting gift for my family. Isn't that a bit too much? Be content." Neza directly rolled his eyes at Yang Chen and said with great dissatisfaction, "The old guy relied on the wishful golden pagoda to defeat the 4 guys of the mighty miracle god and favorable wind and rain. The fire seed inside almost burned the Milky Way dry. Otherwise, how do you think he could suppress so many fierce generals?" Heavenly King Li was the Heavenly Court's Grand Marshal back then. Neza wasn't lying. When Yang Chen heard how powerful Heavenly King Li's pagoda was, and how it wasn't what Yang Chen had described, Yang Chen beamed with joy. Neza shook his head. However, Neza immediately realized that he'd been tricked by this guy. He'd gotten so many things out of him. "Thank you, Senior." Before Neza turned hostile, Yang Chen had already bowed down to him as a junior, but Neza couldn't get angry even if he wanted to. "It's good that you handled it this way. I won't have to worry about it." Neza finally calmed down and said calmly. He didn't feel sorry that Yang Chen wanted to tear down the wishful golden pagoda. In any case, to Neza, using the pagoda to shut Ancestor Lu and Madame Bai's mouths was a greeting gift to Yang Chen and the others. Yang Chen also helped him tear down the pagoda. Out of sight, out of mind. It was the best of both worlds. Yang Chen was smart. He didn't say anything. He waited for Neza's orders. Neza chased after Heavenly King Li but didn't kill him in the end. Neza even asked about Heavenly King Li's circumstances when he died. His thoughts were complicated. Neza didn't want more people to analyze him. Yang Chen wouldn't take the initiative to do so. Let's go. Neza finally let go of this matter. He waved at Yang Chen and pointed in a direction. Over there. It's about time. It's not good for people to use it to refine things. It's better to get it over with. Without another word, Yang Chen took out the mysterious Sky Dark Sea shuttle and took Neza in the direction Neza pointed. Neza's injuries had recovered a lot. If the Zhao family didn't send out a large number of top experts, they probably wouldn't be able to stop Neza. Retrieving the wishful golden pagoda was a piece of cake. The Zhao family thought that they had succeeded. They thought that they could restrain Neza with the wishful golden pagoda. Yang Chen couldn't wait to see those guys suddenly see the appearance of Neza, and then take the pagoda but be helpless against Neza, and then be easily taken back by Neza after the pagoda was easily taken back. It would be a good scene. Chapter 2577. Of course, Yang Chen would not set off with Neza alone. Although there were not many cultivators in the immortal realm who could threaten their safety, the only problem was that Neza's identity could not be exposed yet. Once it was exposed, Chunyang Palace would definitely be the first target. Back then, Neza didn't just kill one or two people. He killed thousands of top experts during the rebellion in the Heavenly Court and seriously injured the rest who participated in the siege. Even the current Jade Emperor wouldn't stop the forces of these cultivators from taking revenge. Therefore, unless he was sure that he could kill all of them, Neza would not make a move. This was also the reason why nearly 100,000 cultivators had been killed by Yang Chen before. Unlike those cultivators who were killed directly by Neza, those greedy cultivators who were killed by Yang Chen were killed by the masters of the immortal tombs and space cave residences, which had nothing to do with Yang Chen. Firstly, Yang Chen did not force them to go in with him. Secondly, he did not do it himself. Even if someone hated him, they could only do it secretly. If they put it on the table, even their own partners would look down on them. If they dared to steal his relics, they should not be afraid of the traps set by others, and they could not vent their anger on the people who led the way. But even so, it did not mean that Yang Chen was safe. There was still a big hidden danger. If Gong Sunling was by his side, with the geographical map of mountains and rivers, he would not be able to attack, but he could protect himself. But now Gong Sunling and the girls were taken away by Ancestor LV and Madame Bai, leaving Yang Chen alone, so he needed enough power to protect himself. Madame Bai's maids, Ancestor LV and Madame Bai, took away some of them, and the rest stayed in Chunyang Palace. Now that Yang Chen was going out, these maids didn't say anything and divided a large part of them into more than 600 people. They directly followed Yang Chen and lived in the Five Elements Dragon Palace. Only 100 maids of the innumerable tribulation true immortals were left in the Chunyang Palace. More than 600 tribulation true immortals, who were personally guided by Ancestor Lu and Madame Bai, were a formidable force no matter where they were. This force followed Yang Chen, and there was also the great god Neza in the dark. It could be said that Yang Chen had nothing to worry about no matter where he went. Neza was happy that someone solved some small problems for him. He stayed in the Dragon Palace leisurely. It was strange. Neza hated the Dragon Clan to the core, but he was very satisfied with the Dragon Palace. Maybe he was venting his hatred for the Dragon Clan in this way. Right now, Yang Chen was having a headache over how to interact with elder sister Aolan and the others in the future. It was true that Neza hated the dragon race, but did the dragon race have a good impression of Neza? Fortunately, the two sides had not met yet. If they really bumped into each other one day, it would be a headache for Yang Chen. The Zhao family hid very well in the immortal realm, but it did not mean that there were no clues about the big sect in the immortal realm. At least, the Three River Alliance, the Holocaust sect, and the Thousand Demon sect were controlled by the Zhao family in the spiritual realm. The immortal realm was no exception. As early as before Yang Chen ascended, when he was still fighting with the Zhao family in the spiritual world, these three great forces belonging to the super sects had already been suppressed by the major sects led by the Jade Emperor and the Profound Heaven sect. It could be said that that battle was the most intense battle since the upheaval of the heavenly court. It almost swept the entire immortal realm. All the affiliated sect participated in it. They were divided into two groups and fought fiercely. Among them, there was the Zhao family who hid even more deeply. The intensity of the war was unprecedented. After a life-and-death war, the Three River Alliance, the Holocaust sect, and the Thousand Demon sect were directly removed from the immortal realm. All the territories were divided by the Big Sect. However, the Big Sect did not win completely. The price they paid was enough to make the Big Sect's heart ache. Although the Big Sect seemed calm after Yang Chen ascended, there were at least thousands of top experts in each sect who were in seclusion to recover from their injuries. These were only the top disciples. Compared to these experts, which sect didn't have tens of thousands of experts recovering from their injuries? The reason why the immortal realm had been so peaceful for so many years was because the Big Sect had been licking their wounds quietly, waiting for the day of the final battle with the Zhao family. Those wandering outside were basically small fish and shrimp. Otherwise, how could Yang Chen dig up an immortal tomb that was coveted by countless people? Those were really just small shrimps. The big guys were either recovering from their injuries or conserving their energy. Moreover, would the big guys be interested in the tomb of some guys who were about the same level as them? What a joke. This time, the target of Yang Chen and Neza was a small sect. Yang Chen only found out about it when he was about to arrive at the destination. Neza knew where the tomb was, but he didn't know what kind of opponents they were going to face. When he arrived, he found out that it was actually the mountain gate of a small sect. The Zhao family had hidden itself well. Even after the war of exterminating the three sects, there were still some of them that had not been exposed. This small sect was one of them. It looked very ordinary and even attached to a big sect. But in fact, it was a branch of the Zhao family. On the surface, this small sect was an insignificant sect with only a few hundred disciples. Usually, there were only 2 infinite tribulation true immortals in charge. The other disciples were all at the level of Black Immortal and Golden Immortal. There were no more than 20 Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals. Such a sect, placed in the mortal world, was not as good as the status of the Pure Yang Palace. But Neza swore that Heavenly King Li's wishful golden pagoda was here, and there were more than 2 infinite tribulation true immortals in it. There were at least 300 of them. Neza's senses could not be wrong, even though they were thousands of miles away. Even Madame Bai's special maids sensed that there were many masters in that direction, but they didn't know the exact number. These maids were specially selected by Ancestor LV to serve Madame Bai. Some of them had special senses, which were used to warn Madame Bai. They could detect hidden masters. This was their special ability. There's a big fish. Neza seemed to have followed Yang Chen for a long time. He also knew to consider from Yang Chen's side. The guy with the pagoda, should we keep him alive? He must know a lot of things we want to know. It was normal. No matter how careless the Zhao family was, it was impossible for them to give the wishful golden pagoda to an insignificant guy. It was a powerful magic treasure that could allow Heavenly King Li to fight against the giant miracle god and Fairweather. Even if the fire inside could not do anything to Neza, it was definitely a powerful magic treasure that could frighten most masters in the immortal world. It could greatly increase the combat ability of their side. At this moment, when both sides were looking for opportunities to attack each other, it was better to give something like the wishful golden pagoda to their own masters. Chapter 2578. Can he be captured alive? Yang Chen was very surprised. Unless the other party kowtowed and begged for mercy when he saw that Neza didn't attack him, like the guys who recognized Neza a few times before, Neza had never captured any of his men alive. This time, Neza was so generous, he was definitely giving Yang Chen face. Before Neza could answer, Yang Chen nodded hurriedly. It's better if he's alive. He can be sold for a good price. Profiteer, Neza said in a very low voice. Then, he commented on Yang Chen loudly. He's exactly the same as your ancestor who indulged in debauchery and greed. Jackals of the same tribe. Madame Bai's maids, who were not far away, burst into laughter. Neza had never been good in front of Ancestor Lu. Now that he vented his anger in front of Yang Chen, they naturally laughed at him. There was no need for Neza to fight with a few maids. It wouldn't lower his status. He snorted coldly again, then disappeared in a flash, leaving a clear reminder to Yang Chen, wait for my signal. Don't let anyone escape. As soon as Neza disappeared, Madame Bai's maids began to make arrangements. They wanted to intercept people from all directions. Fortunately, they had the advantage of numbers. More than 600 maids were twice the number of masters that Neza had found. That was enough. Yang Chen swaggered into the sphere of influence of the small sect. He believed that Neza asked him to wait for the signal, not to let him sit here and wait. Sometimes, Yang Chen needed to create some opportunities. When Yang Chen flew forward, he was immediately discovered. Then, dozens of golden immortals, led by an Zenith Heaven golden immortal, intercepted Yang Chen's way. However, when they stood in front of Yang Chen was less than 1,000 miles away from the core area of the small sect. The biggest advantage of the mysterious Sky Nethersea shuttle was its speed, which Yang Chen had made full use of. Who are you? Stop. The other party had just issued a warning when Yang Chen had already raised his immortal beheading saber. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. The familiar mantra finally sounded in the immortal world. This was not Yang Chen's intention to kill with a borrowed knife, but to do it himself. After Ancestor Lu's sacrificial refining with the help of Shao Tian, the immortal beheading blade was no longer a simple sword sheath, but a real yin and yang 5 elements magic weapon. The power was more than several times higher than when it was scattered. Under the powerful blessing of Shao Tian, the leader of the great principal golden immortal watched his own flying sword being cut by Yang Chen, and then cut into the flying sword like cutting tofu. It was easily drawn out from the hilt, and then he felt a pain in his sea of consciousness. The whole process seemed to be in slow motion, but it was extremely clear. Even the pain from the destruction of the natal flying sword was delayed by a beat before it reached his sea of consciousness. After that, all his movements seemed to return to normal. But the feeling of the great principal golden immortal stopped there, and then he could no longer feel the pain. The remaining power of the immortal beheading blade had not subsided. After cutting his natal flying sword, it fell directly on his head. It was not a horizontal beheading, but a saber from top to bottom, from the top of the head to the heart, cut through the glabella, cut through the middle of the body, cut through the chest, cut through the dantian, and cut the great principal golden immortal into 2 symmetrical pieces. What was even more frightening was that after the 2 pieces of the corpse were cut by the immortal beheading blade, they directly turned into 2 dry corpses. The blood of the whole body disappeared instantly, and the corpse was pale. Dozens of golden immortal masters still maintained the momentum of rushing forward, and dozens of natal magic weapons directly hit Yang Chen's body in the next step. However, it was blocked by a black and white ball that suddenly appeared in front of Yang Chen. Immediately after that, Yang Chen's counterattack came again. One of the golden immortals who rushed at the front narrowly avoided Yang Chen's backhand attack in time, but unfortunately, his arm was cut by the tip of Yang Chen's saber. A surge of earth chi mixed with endless vitality poured into the golden immortal's body through the wound. The next moment, the golden immortal stood still on the spot, and before he could even scream, his body began to turn into stone. No matter how hard he tried to resist, he could not resist the process. By the time Yang Chen cut off the head of the 6th guy and sucked his blood dry, the first golden immortal had already turned into stone. This was the original offensive power of the Living Soil flying sword, but Yang Chen had never used the power of the Living Soil alone before. Now that the 10 great yin-yang flying swords were combined into one, all the power of the flying sword did not need to be exerted through the sword case, and directly hit the target. The ferocious power made the opponent feel despair. The whole target area was in chaos. A strong enemy came to the door and started killing without saying a word. What else was there to say? Especially when someone recognized Yang Chen from afar, he immediately knew that there was not much point in quibbling, so he mobilized the strongest experts to kill Yang Chen. From the beginning, both sides did not intend to compromise. On Yang Chen's side, everyone except the guy with the wishful gold pagoda would be killed. After the other side recognized Yang Chen, they also knew that things would not end well, so no one dilly-dallied and just started fighting. Just as Neza said, more than 300 experts of infinite tribulation true immortals suddenly appeared on the other side and went straight to Yang Chen. Although they did not know how Yang Chen found them, since Yang Chen had already started killing, it was too meaningless for them to hide their experts. As soon as more than 300 experts appeared, they were immediately surrounded by more than 600 maidservants of Madame Bai. 2 against 1, the maidservants did not feel that it was wrong to bully Yang Chen with numbers, so they went up to kill. Occasionally there would be a few extremely powerful opponents. When Madame Bai's maids were no match for them in a 2-on-1 battle, a spear would suddenly appear out of nowhere and mercilessly stab the opponent to death. The other infinite tribulation true immortals were no match for Madame Bai's maidservants at all, so they were trampled miserably. The battle started very quickly and suddenly, but it also stopped very quickly. No one knew when it started, but Neza had already surrounded this area with the heaven and earth ring. No matter how big the noise was, it would not go out of the ring. When the enemy's corpses in the ring were collected by Madame Bai's maidservants, ready to be used as nourishment for the geographical map of Mountain River, Neza walked to Yang Chen with an unconscious guy in his hand. "This is the guy." Neza threw the guy to the ground and threw something shining with golden light to Yang Chen. What else could it be? The wishful gold pagoda. Yang Chen caught it in a hurry. The only one who did not take this thing seriously was probably Neza in front of him. Previously, he told others that this thing was the only powerful magic treasure that could restrain Neza. Many people had been fooled by him. Chapter 2579. Neza did not care about the wishful golden pagoda, but Yang Chen regarded it as a treasure. Even if the pagoda would not be damaged, even if it fell to the ground with all its strength, Yang Chen was reluctant to let it fall to the ground. As soon as he grabbed the pagoda, a kind of frightening aura passed from his hand to Yang Chen's sea of consciousness. Needless to say, it was definitely a real thing. Neza would not deceive Yang Chen with a fake thing. It was not worth it. Without taking a closer look, Yang Chen directly called out Xiao Tian and stuffed the wishful golden pagoda into his mouth. At the same time, he did not forget to exhort, "Keep the fire inside for me." Xiao Tian's body flew up and down with joy. After nodding his head in a hurry, he circled around Neza a few times, as if thanking Neza for his gift. Then he flew back to the Dragon Palace and refined it alone. Neza didn't show a smile until Xiao Tian disappeared. Xiao Tian was also a dragon. It was almost impossible for Neza to like him. However, Neza was quite happy that Xiao Tian could still think of thanking him. At least, it showed that there were still people in the Dragon Clan who could adapt to circumstances. There was only one wishful golden pagoda. It was said to be a meeting gift for Yang Chen's family. This gift was absolutely valuable, but it was not easy for Yang Chen to divide it. He could not split the pagoda and give it to the girls, right? That would be a reckless waste of natural resources. Therefore, Yang Chen directly gave the pagoda to Xiao Tian. He believed that the girls would agree with his arrangement if they knew. Yang Chen and Neza were handing over the gift. From beginning to end, they did not look at the guy who was lying on the ground in a coma. Yang Chun was very clear about Neza's efficiency. Even if at least 50% of his injuries had not recovered, it was not difficult for him to deal with an innumerable tribulation true immortal. You said that this guy can be sold at a good price. Aren't you afraid that you can't explain it? How did you find the wishful golden pagoda? Neza suddenly changed the topic to this guy, but he suspected that if Yang Chun sold this guy, it would arouse the suspicion of the new heavenly court, and they would associate Yang Chun with Neza. Of course, Neza wasn't afraid of those clowns, but he hadn't fully recovered from his injuries, and there was still a koan waiting for him to fight. There was no need for him to get entangled with these guys from the heavenly court. In Neza's mind, the improvement of his cultivation and the desire to fight strong enemies were more important than hatred. As for revenge, it could wait until these things were done. What's so difficult about that? When Yang Chun heard this, he laughed. He pointed at his nose and said, I'm the executioner of the beheading Immortal platform. I personally executed Heavenly Kingly. Heavenly Kingly told me some secrets about the wishful golden pagoda before he died. Is that hard to understand? Yang Chen's identity as an executioner was always successful. Neza was speechless after hearing it. Call Yang Chun a liar? Who could prove it? All the immortals in the beheading Immortal platform had been killed, and there was no evidence. Who could prove it? What Yang Chun said was true. This was good. At least, Neza didn't have to worry about the suspicion of the higher-ups of the sect. Since there was no trouble, Neza couldn't help but want to see how Yang Chun would sell this guy at a high price. He believed that the process would be very exciting. Then why don't you hurry up? Neza urged Yang Chun, which was rare. In the past, Neza always killed his enemies cleanly. He had never tricked his opponent like this, so he couldn't wait to learn and observe. Of course, he would interrogate the captive first, and then sell him after getting some information. Although this guy was an infinite tribulation true immortal, he couldn't hide any secrets in front of Yang Chun, especially in front of Yang Chun from the immortal realm. The immortal beheading saber and the beheading Immortal platform had been connected. When the killing intent inside was released unscrupulously toward a person, even the most powerful expert had to kneel down. After being tossed around like this, almost whatever Yang Chun asked the other party would say, no matter how big or small. I didn't expect the Zhao family to have so many secret arrangements. Although Neza was used to seeing big scenes, he couldn't help but praise the Zhao family when he heard so many arrangements. Compared with the Zhao family, those guys in the heavenly court were simply trash. Let those guys take action and kill people with a borrowed knife. Ah! Neza suddenly became happy. The stronger the Zhao family is, the more experts they will send out, and the more casualties they will suffer. Ha ha, I like it! After being with Yang Chun for a long time, Neza's first thought was not to kill the enemy immediately, but to let Yang Chun instigate all the major sects to take action. It had to be said that the 100,000 cultivators killed by Yang Chun had a great impact on Neza. Oh no! Neza suddenly thought of something. Didn't he say that the Zhao family would take action against Chunyang Palace soon? We are all here. I'm afraid Chunyang Palace is in danger. They have already taken action. Before Yang Chun could answer, Peony, one of the maids left by Madame Bai, who was familiar with Yang Chun, said, We received the news from our sisters. It's now. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Maybe it was not so, but it was just a coincidence. When Yang Chun and Neza were planning to take the wishful golden pagoda, the Zhao family was also planning to take action against Chunyang Palace. Yang Chen's bottleneck dispelling elixir caused an uproar in the immortal world, and the Zhao family was no exception. They had many masters, and many of them needed the bottleneck dispelling elixir to help them get through the bottleneck. However, things were different now. In the past, when they were in the spiritual realm in the mortal world, they could buy the elixir prescription from Yang Chun through several super sects. But the Three River Alliance, The Thousand Demon sect and the Holocaust sect in the Immortal world had been killed, and all the major sect had hidden the elixir prescription like a treasure. If they wanted to get the elixir prescription, the only way was to get it from the relatively weak Chunyang Palace and Yangchun. The other side knew that there were millions of tribulation true immortals in Chunyang Palace, so they sent many masters to ensure that they could destroy the whole Chunyang Palace and catch Yangchun and the others in one fell swoop. Just now, the Zhao family launched an attack. Tell everyone not to risk their lives. It's just a temporary gate. It's not worth protecting with our lives if it's destroyed. Yang Chun hurriedly told Sister Peony. Since the other side took action, they must have absolute confidence. It was not worth the lives of the maids. Peony looked at Yang Chen's eyes very seriously, as if she was confirming the truth of her words. She still insisted, "This is the Lord's sect. It's not worth it." Yang Chen still shook her head. "Tell all the disciples to retreat. If they can run, run. If the gate is destroyed, it can be rebuilt. If the people are gone, it's really gone." Peony finally stopped insisting. After a while, she said to Yang Chen, "All the sisters have retreated, and all the nominal disciples have been brought, but I'm afraid the gate can't be saved." Chapter 2580. Just based on what this fellow knew, if they gathered together, it would be a force that was not inferior to a super sect. At the thought of such a terrifying force hiding under the noses of all parties, the high-level officials of all parties broke into a cold sweat. The look on Sect Master Chui's face became more and more strange, as if there was something he wanted to say but couldn't say. His behavior naturally attracted the attention of all the high-level officials, and everyone became more and more curious. The mountain gate of Chunyang Palace was indeed destroyed, but under Yang Chen's order, there were no casualties among the maids. On the contrary, the masters among them who were very good at tracking still followed several groups of masters who attacked and found the enemy's nest. The master's mind had been destroyed to the point of collapse, and he answered whatever was asked. The high-level officials of all parties took turns to ask questions, and the more they asked, the more shocked they became. "Grandmasters!" Sect Master Chui organized his words and said slowly, "The mountain gate of Chunyang Palace has been destroyed more than once or twice. The disciples in the mortal world don't know very well, but in the spiritual realm alone, the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace has been destroyed 4 times and rebuilt 4 times. Every time there was a storm of blood, but Chunyang Palace could stand up again every time. It was because of this that it made a great reputation in the spiritual realm. If not, how could Chunyang Palace make all the major sects look at it with admiration?" Listening to the elder's words, Sect Master Chui, who had ascended from the spiritual realm, smiled bitterly. The elder must be dissatisfied with Yang Chen, but he still underestimated Yang Chen and Chunyang Palace. The important figures of the Zhao family were captured, the wishful golden pagoda was taken away by Yang Chen, and so on. Everyone only knows that the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace was destroyed. No one knows how many casualties Chunyang Palace suffered, and no one knows how much damage they suffered, Sect Master Chui replied honestly. He was the sect master in the spiritual realm, but even though he attended the core high-level meetings after his ascension, he could only listen and did not have the power to make decisions for a long period of time. However, since it was the sect master who asked, the former sect master Chui would not hide anything. Some judgments cannot be made too early. What made more than a dozen senior executives of the super sect feel embarrassed was that the masters of the Zhao family who attacked Chunyang Palace turned out to be masters of their affiliated sect. Even though Madame Bai's maidservants had concealed some of their identities, they still managed to uncover some of their identities. The news that Chunyang Palace was attacked quickly spread throughout the immortal world. Countless cultivators began discussing fervently. Everyone was still waiting to buy the barrier-dispelling elixir from the Wanbao Tower of Chunyang Palace. There was no chance now. No one would underestimate such a tenacious sect. If the Chunyang Palace in the spiritual world could be destroyed and rebuilt, a miracle might happen in the immortal world. I won't go too far. Yang Chen smiled and asked the maidservants to send the captured guys to the senior executives of their respective sect. It's just that these things have happened, which will inevitably cause some gossip. Of course, I absolutely doubt the innocence of the major sect. Since these are the subordinates of the various sects, I will return them to the seniors. I still have something to do, so I will take my leave first. Tell me in detail. The sect master ordered. Everyone had learned about Chunyang Palace before, but they were mainly related to Yang Chen in the later stage. Moreover, they were more concerned about the part where the disciples of Xiantian sect changed their appearance and joined Chunyang Palace. Who would pay attention to the things that happened before? It was a core elder of the Five Elements sect who had just spoken. Before, when Yang Chen sold the barrier-dispelling elixir to everyone, he still had control over the raw materials, which made the core elder very dissatisfied. Now the Chunyang Palace was destroyed. Although he was very unhappy with what those guys did, he still had a feeling of venting his anger. In any case, the destruction of the sect is a disgrace to the disciples of the sect. The dissatisfied core elder also understood that what sect Master Chui said was reasonable, but he still insisted on his own opinion. The destruction of the sect. Even if there were not many casualties among the disciples, how could Yang Chen have the face to meet the ancestors of the sect? Several masters who participated in the attack were even captured alive by Madame Bai's maidservants after the attack and brought here. Like the master of the Zhao family who was captured alive, his mind was destroyed by Yang Chen, and he answered everything asked. He confessed to the attack on Chunyang Palace, and many details were very clear. After all, it's a sect without a foundation. Even if there are more than 10,000 tribulation true immortals, isn't it still destroyed by someone? The cultivators from all sides were talking about it, and the major sect Gaotsin Industries were also talking about it, but they were more interested in who did it. It could almost be said that the Zhao family had a grudge against the Chunyang Palace. Yang Chen's method of revenge did not let everyone wait for a long time. Soon the Five Elements sect received a notice from the Green Jade Immortal Island, asking them to send high-level officials to the Green Jade Immortal Island to discuss important matters. No one knew what the specific matter was, but everyone believed that the Green Jade Immortal Island would not invite them for no reason. Now everyone was concerned about how Yang Chen would retaliate. If Yang Chen's means of revenge could satisfy everyone, they didn't mind raising the status of Chunyang Palace in their minds. Why, is there any explanation for this? It was the sect master who spoke. He was also curious by the expression of sect master Chui and took the initiative to ask. Hiss! There was a sound of inhaling cold air among the high-level officials of the Five Elements sect. The mountain gate was destroyed 4 times and rebuilt 4 times. Such a tough sect was indeed admirable. Why, is there anything strange about this? How could the face of sect master Chui be hidden from these core high-level officials? And the current sect master immediately asked. Those guys who attacked were simply the public enemies of all the cultivators in the world. This time, almost all the cultivators except the disciples of the super sect were directly cut off. How vicious was it? A series of things didn't know until everyone rushed to the Green Jade Immortal Island. They also saw Yang Chen himself, and at the same time, they also saw the master of the Zhao family who was captured by Neza. They always thought that Chunyang Palace was lucky to be able to be on an equal footing with everyone. Now they learned from the mouth of sect master Chui that it turned out that Chunyang Palace relied on their own strength and tenacity to fight all the way to the status. It was not easy. What was even more frightening was that some of the affiliated sect of the various parties had actually been infiltrated by the Zhao family. Many of them thought that they were loyal younger brothers, but in fact, they were the Zhao family's lackeys. They had been quietly hiding under the wings of the major sect and secretly developing, and the major sect still acted as an umbrella for them. Some people began to wonder if this was the arrangement of the major sect in order to control the interests of the barrier-dispelling pill and take the initiative to kill their competitors. It was not impossible. The cultivators who could ascend to the immortal world didn't mind thinking that any cultivator's mind was more unbearable. The forces of the Zhao family in the immortal world were not destroyed because of the destruction of the Three River Alliance, the Holocaust sect, and the 10,000 Demon sect. On the contrary, some hidden forces had just emerged. Chapter 2581. Yang Chen left easily, but he left a mess for the senior leaders of the major sect. Destroying the gate of Chunyang Palace was done by the affiliated sect of the major sect anyway. They could deal with it by themselves. If Yang Chen was just talking without evidence, then the major sect might turn a blind eye to it. Everyone had a tacit understanding not to mention it. Could Yang Chen still come to them? But Yang Chen had both witnesses and material evidence. Even the important figures of the Zhao family had admitted it. They couldn't deny it even if they wanted to. How should they deal with this matter? What else could they do? Apart from fighting, was there any other good way? The cultivators outside were still waiting to see how Yang Chen would fight back and how Chunyang Palace would retaliate. If Chunyang Palace swallowed the humiliation, then all the cultivators would understand that Chunyang Palace was just strong in appearance, but weak in reality. They could ride on their heads at will. To the surprise of all the cultivators watching, Chunyang Palace did not make a move. Even those disciples who escaped during the attack at that time did not return. Just when everyone thought that Chunyang Palace had been frightened by this blow and was bound to decline, a huge revenge action suddenly unfolded. The most surprising thing was that the first to make a move was not the Green Jade Immortal Island, but the Xiantian sect. The Xiantian sect was merciless as soon as they made a move. They directly eradicated their three affiliated sect, and then a core senior member of Chunyang Palace personally brought hundreds of heads to the gate of Chunyang Palace that had become ruins. He placed so many heads into the shape of an altar and then left. Immediately afterward, the major sect began to attack several of their affiliated sects. Like the Xiantian sect, at least one core senior member personally came forward and sent the heads. With so many super sect members added up, the number of heads sent directly exceeded 10,000. Even if the people of Chunyang Palace did not move a little finger, the scene of tens of thousands of cultivators' heads piling up into an altar was really scary. There were many guys who had not seen the prestige of the pure Yang Palace in the mortal world and the spiritual world. At the beginning, there were a few rumors, but after the first altar was piled up, they did not dare to let go of a word. The Xiantian sect was the first to make a move. In the eyes of the major sect, it was both unexpected and reasonable. After all, the pure Yang Palace in the spiritual world accepted all the disciples of the profound Heaven sect, which made all the sects have an indescribable fear of the profound Heaven sect and the pure Yang Palace. They were afraid that these two sects would merge into one. Similarly, what everyone was looking forward to was perhaps the anger of the immortal world's profound Heaven sect. They would vent their anger on the pure Yang Palace and suppress the pure Yang Palace, which was in line with everyone's expectations. It was a good opportunity. If the Xiantian sect took the opportunity to make a move on Chunyang Palace, everyone would be happy to see it happen. Unfortunately, the Xiantian sect did not leave any evidence for anyone. Even if Yang Chen informed the sect through the Green Jade Immortal Island, the Xiantian sect also took the initiative to take the lead. They were the first to clean up the hidden spies on their side, which fully showed that the Xiantian sect had no malice against Chunyang Palace, but it disappointed everyone. Of course, in the dark where no one knew, even the great god Neza and the maids in the Dragon Palace were not clear. When Yang Chen rushed to the Green Jade Immortal Island with those captives, he went to a secret place and met several acquaintances. Sect Master Wang of the spiritual world of the Xiantian sect was waiting in that place. He first interrogated the master of the Zhao family who held the wishful golden pagoda. The The Xiantian sect had been operating in the immortal world for a long time, and many secret things were asked in detail. Some things were even unheard of by Yang Chen. Sect Master Wang and the other two masters who did not reveal their identities almost turned the captured master of the Zhao family upside down, and then they let Yang Chen take him away. To say that the first to know the news, it was the Xiantian sect that knew it first. But the Xiantian sect still did not make a move, waiting for the Green Jade Immortal Island to inform the sect. They also sent a core high-level member to pretend to go over for a meeting to discuss, and then they came back to make a move. Their posture was done to the extreme, and no one doubted it at all. In private, after Sect Master Wang brought all the news back to the Xiantian sect, the high-level members, including the Jade Emperor, were shocked that their own affiliated sect had been infiltrated so much, and they were also very satisfied with the performance of Yang Chen. The Xiantian sect was the first to make a move, not only to retaliate against the Zhao family, but also to vent Yang Chen's anger. Anyway, the Xiantian sect acted like this. Even if the other sect was reluctant, they had to follow suit. Imperceptibly, the status of the Chunyang Palace was raised. In this regard, the Xiantian sect did not leave any traces, but it was very effective. Many of the nominal disciples of the Chunyang Palace died in the attack at that time. After all, the opponent was a true immortal, facing a group of rogue cultivators or small cultivators of a small sect. Many people were killed. However, most of the nominal disciples were taken away by Madame Bai's maids. If those maidservants didn't want to fight and just ran away, there wouldn't be many who could stop them from chasing after them. The opponent failed to find Yang Chen, who they wanted to find the most. In the end, they could only destroy all the buildings of the gate of the Chunyang Palace to vent their anger. Now, the heads of tens of thousands of people were enough to pay tribute to those dead nominal disciples. The maids also returned to Yang Chen's side one after another, and everyone returned to the ruins of the Chunyang Palace. Although the Chunyang Palace was now in ruins, no cultivator dared to despise it. Especially after this experience, almost all the cultivators knew that the gate of the Chunyang Palace in the spiritual realm had been destroyed several times in the mortal world, but it could stand up again every time. This tenacity was enough to make all the cultivators look at it with admiration. Tens of thousands of heads were enough for many people to know who they could provoke and who they could not. Especially when the agreed period between Yang Chen and the Chunyang Palace in the spiritual realm passed and some disciples of the Chunyang Palace ascended, someone in the reception town told the disciples of the Chunyang Palace about the destruction of the gate of the Chunyang Palace. Originally, these guys wanted to see the embarrassed faces of the disciples of the Chunyang Palace when they heard that the gate of their sect had been destroyed. However, they did not expect that no disciple of the Chunyang Palace would be embarrassed. Instead, they all calmly asked whether those who attacked the gate of the Chunyang Palace had been killed. The confidence and calmness of the disciples of the Chunyang Palace seemed to be convinced that anyone who dared to offend the gate of the Chunyang Palace would not have a good end. This was not an illusion created by the "I am very powerful" image, but the absolute confidence formed after the gate was destroyed and rebuilt several times from the mortal world to the spiritual realm, and all the people who offended the gate were killed. Even if it was just a disciple of the Xian Immortal who had ascended, the masters of the sect in the reception town could not help but admire him. Chapter 2582. The disciples of Chunyang Palace were not afraid of the destruction of the mountain gate, nor were they afraid of suffering losses. They only cared about one thing, that was, whether those who dared to disrespect Chunyang Palace would pay the price. From this point alone, people would feel a great pressure out of thin air. When facing the disciples of Chunyang Palace, they should try their best to deal with them carefully. The mountain gate was rebuilt again. This time, even those nominal disciples were extremely excited and full of energy. In the past, when they encountered this kind of thing, whether they were individual cultivators or small sect members, they all had to swallow their anger. When necessary, they had to smile at those masters who bullied them. Even if they died, they would die in vain. Without enough support, it was so difficult to survive in the immortal realm. But now, after becoming a disciple of Chunyang Palace, they had no scruples at all. Before, those practitioners who came to Chunyang Palace wanted the barrier-dispelling elixir. Which one of them did not carefully flatter these nominal disciples of Chunyang Palace and let them taste the feeling of being respected? Even though many disciples died in the raid on the mountain gate, in less than a year, the heads of all the guys who participated in the destruction of the mountain gate were placed outside. What made everyone even more tempted was that these people did not need to show up at all. Just their palace masters went out for a walk, and some people came to apologize with their head. Moreover, they were the core leaders of the major sect. What did this mean? Moreover, Chunyang Palace had never used them as cannon fodder. At that time, those who were attacked were killed at the first time, and those who could be taken away were all taken away. Those superior innumerable tribulation true immortals and fairies did not despise them. Instead, they personally saved them. In such a situation, what else could they say? In addition to unswerving loyalty, if they were disloyal, it would be completely unfathomable. Compared with staying in this place with a smiling face before, when others needed him, he would be driven away like a pig. Joining the Pure Yang Palace was simply like going to heaven, and all this could be obtained as long as they were loyal. The Zhao family would never have thought that their sudden attack would have such an effect. If they had known that Yang Chen was not in Chunyang Palace at that time, and that he had exposed so many hidden forces after the failure, they would not have chosen to attack Chunyang Palace at that time. Unfortunately, even in the immortal world, there was no medicine for regret. The Zhao family could only watch as the major sect uprooted their tens of thousands of hidden forces. They did not even dare to rescue them. At this time, whoever dared to save those guys would be a member of the Zhao family. Regardless of whether you had a close relationship with one of the guys, the sect would definitely kill the wrong guy. All this stemmed from their desire to attack Yang Chen in Chunyang Palace, which made them hate Yang Chen to the bone. If the old grudges in the mortal world and the spiritual world were added, the Zhao family would not stop until they tore Yang Chen's body into pieces. It must be said that Neza's concerns at that time were very normal. At that time, when Yang Chen handed over the big shot from the Zhao family, the higher-ups were still doubtful that Yang Chen could find him. However, when Yang Chen told them that he knew some secrets of the wishful golden pagoda from Heavenly Kingly, nobody could say anything about it. Nobody could refute Yang Chen at all. Dead people could not testify. Could they find Heavenly King Li's corpse to prove it? The wishful golden pagoda became Yang Chen's rightfully. Who asked the Zhao family to use the pagoda to tempt Yang Chen to exchange it for the geographical map of the mountains and rivers in the first place. When Yang Chen told them about his past, nobody doubted him anymore. Yang Chen knew the secret of the wishful golden pagoda, but the Zhao family still used it to tempt Yang Chen. Wasn't that courting death? If the pagoda was in the hands of some expert of the heavenly court, Yang Chen would be too embarrassed to take action. But since it was in the hands of the Zhao family, he could do whatever he wanted. As for how a small golden immortal like Yang Chen could fight against an immortal of tribulation true immortal, it was not a problem. Didn't they see the hundreds of women of immortal of tribulation true immortal around Yang Chen? It was said that Yang Chen had brought more than 600 of them with him at that time. Moreover, he restrained the wishful golden pagoda at once, which was why he had such an effect. There was no doubt about it at all. This time, it was not only the disciples of Chunyang Palace who contributed to the reconstruction of the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace. The major sects were implicated by their affiliated sections. Although it was the conspiracy of the Zhao family, it was inextricably linked to the major sections. Even if they handed over their heads, they could still rebuild the Pure Yang Palace. They had to put in a lot of effort. All the major sect worked together, and the mountain gate was rebuilt quickly. In less than 2 years, the brand new mountain gate of Chunyang Palace appeared in front of all the cultivators again. After the reputation spread out, there were many rogue cultivators, and some small sects that were not in the mainstream slowly came over and joined the Pure Yang Palace. Those nominal disciples who did not escape when the Zhao family attacked the mountain gate and stayed to guard the mountain gate loyally had been promoted to official disciples and handled various affairs under the leadership of the maids. Yang Chun himself began to screen and test the disciples inside Chunyang Palace. Among the newly arrived small sects, a few were sent over by the Profound Heaven sect. These small sect members were secretly cultivated by Xiantian sect, but except for the sect master, no one knew that they belonged to Xiantian sect. Although the sects were small in scale, they had a lot of disciples. It was just that the number of top experts was not high. They were also the reserve talents that Xiantian sect cultivated for itself, ready to supplement Xiantian sect at any time. Now that Yang Chun had made a great contribution, these reserve talents could be regarded as a reward to make up for the structure of Chunyang Palace. These disciples did not belong to Xiantian sect at all, and even their sect master disappeared automatically after joining Chunyang Palace. There was no trace of Xiantian sect at all. It could be said that they had purely become disciples of Chunyang Palace. In just a few decades, there were tens of thousands of rogue cultivators and cultivators in such a situation who joined Chunyang Palace. In addition to Madame Bai's maids, from the top to the bottom, from the top to the bottom, from the innumerable tribulation true immortals to the almighty immortals to the golden immortals and black immortals, it could be said that Chunyang Palace had quickly established a complete structure and inheritance of the sect structure. All the sect members were stunned to see all this happen. They could not believe that Chunyang Palace, which used to have only one commander, Yang Chun, with 4 wives and concubines, would become like this in just over 200 years. Fortunately, this kind of thing had happened once in the spiritual realm, and all parties had reluctantly accepted the status quo. In this regard, all parties were extremely envious of Chunyang Palace. With such an outstanding disciple as Yang Chun, he managed a mediocre sect in the mortal world to become like this. Yang Chun could finally wait for the disciples of Chunyang Palace in the spiritual realm to ascend to immortality with peace of mind. However, the arrival of a person still surprised Yang Chun, especially after hearing what he wanted to discuss with Yang Chun. Yang Chun could not believe his ears. Chapter 2583. The people who came to visit Yang Chun were Elder Yao of Xuanwu Academy, who sought refuge in Chunyang Palace in the later stage of the spiritual realm, and a core higher-up of Xuanwu Academy in the immortal realm. Because of the Elder Lu and young Master Lu of the Black Tortoise Academy, the Black Tortoise Academy in the mortal world surrendered to the Zhao family during the later stages of the war between the sect and the Zhao family. It became the enemy of the sect and was annihilated. However, everyone in the sect understood that it was only the result of Black Tortoise Academy's internal strife. Not all of the Black Tortoise Academy had truly sided with the Zhao family. After all, the Black Tortoise Academy was different from the Three River Alliance, the Holocaust sect, and the Thousand Beasts sect. They were not affiliated with the Zhao family at all. However, the Black Tortoise Academy in the spiritual world could not be kept. Under such circumstances, they could only choose to destroy it. Because of this, only Elder Yao could be sure that he came from above and would definitely not be in cahoots with the Zhao family. The other righteous disciples had all been killed by Elder Lu in the power struggle of the sect. The remaining ones were all in cahoots with Elder Lu. The destruction of the Black Tortoise Academy in the spirit world was not unjustified. The problem was that it caused a huge gap in the inheritance of the Black Tortoise Academy in the mortal world and the immortal world. After the disciples of the Black Tortoise Academy in the mortal world ascended to the spiritual realm, they could not find the Black Tortoise Academy in the spiritual realm at all. Because of this, they actually became rogue cultivators. They did not even dare to say that they were disciples of the Black Tortoise Academy. The Black Tortoise Academy in the Immortal world was now facing the same predicament as the Black Heaven sect. What was slightly better than the Xiantian sect was the Xuanwu Academy in the mortal world, but it was not much better than the Xiantian sect. When the disciples of the Xuanwu Academy didn't dare to admit that they were disciples of the Xuanwu Academy in the spiritual realm, how many disciples of the Xuanwu Academy in the celestial realm could pass down their legacy? After the crisis of the Zhao family was resolved in the spiritual world, the Xuanwu Academy in the immortal world had been troubled by this problem, and they could not come up with a good solution. The other sect would definitely not allow another 1 or 2 golden immortal experts to descend. Not only that, Elder Yao would have to ascend as well. Otherwise, it would destroy the balance of the spiritual world. With one less super sect to compete for resources, the other sects would get a bigger share. Therefore, even if it was for the most fundamental benefit of the sect, the other sects would never want to see a destroyed sect rebuilt. Chunyang Palace had been destroyed several times and rebuilt several times. That was because the core disciples of Chunyang Palace were always there, and they were not really destroyed. On the other hand, Black Tortoise Academy was completely destroyed. No one wanted to see them rise again, just like they had done to Black Heaven sect. The only advantage that Black Heaven sect in the spiritual world had over Black Tortoise Academy was that their disciples were not completely wiped out. Many of them survived. Under such circumstances, they directly turned their heads and worshipped Chunyang Palace, and became disciples of Chunyang Palace. Now, Elder Yao and this high-level official of Black Tortoise Academy were the representatives of Black Tortoise Academy. They came to discuss with Yang Chen whether Black Tortoise Academy in the spiritual world could adopt the same method and let the disciples of Black Tortoise Academy become disciples of Chunyang Palace in the spiritual world. The rise of the pure Yang Palace was already an irresistible trend, and after accepting the disciples of the Profound Heaven sect, the Profound Heaven sect also pinched their noses. After Tao Junkie ascended, she only kowtowed in front of the portrait of the ancestor outside the courtyard of Black Heaven sect in Jane City and never entered again. Black Tortoise Academy sent 2 representatives this time in the hope of discussing with Chunyang Palace and Yang Chen whether Chunyang Palace could let Black Tortoise Academy in the spiritual world do the same and accept the disciples of Black Tortoise Academy. Otherwise, those disciples of Black Tortoise Academy who ascended could only be reduced to individual cultivators. Yang Chen believed that he had a very direct understanding of how miserable individual cultivators were in the spiritual world. To be honest, it was true that Black Tortoise Academy was a big force and a super sect. It was definitely beneficial for Chunyang Palace in the spiritual world to accept this group of disciples of Black Tortoise Academy to strengthen their influence. If that was the case, it was a good idea. The problem was, what would happen to these disciples of Black Tortoise Academy after they ascended one day? Would they return to Black Tortoise Academy after ascending to the spiritual world? Wouldn't Chunyang Palace be making a sacrifice for others? They had painstakingly spent the resources of Chunyang Palace and the spiritual vein of Chunyang Palace to cultivate the disciples of Black Tortoise Academy. It was not a worthwhile deal no matter how one looked at it. If those ascended disciples did not return to Black Tortoise Academy, it would be a major loss for Black Tortoise Academy. The disciples that they had painstakingly cultivated in the mortal world had become disciples of Chunyang Palace, but they still did not change the status quo of having no successors. It was not good for Black Tortoise Academy no matter how one looked at it. I'm afraid it will be very troublesome. When Elder Yao and the high-level official of Black Tortoise Academy made their intentions clear, Yang Chen also smiled bitterly. I believe that no matter what the result is, one of us will be dissatisfied. This was not Yang Chen evading, but a fact that could not be avoided in any case. It also contained huge benefits. Once there was a disagreement, the benefits contained in it were enough to make the 2 sect bloodshed on the battlefield. Perhaps there was another solution, which was to merge the Chunyang Palace and Black Tortoise Academy in the Immortal World into one. In that case, there would be no disputes between the two sides. The problem was, who would be in charge of the merger? According to reason, Chunyang Palace had a broad foundation and extraordinary potential, so it should be in charge of this transaction. However, Black Tortoise Academy was a veteran super sect, and it also played an important role in the change of dynasties in the Heavenly Court. So far, there were still a number of important people who held important positions in the Heavenly Court. Such a sect, merging with Chunyang Palace, which had just gained a foothold, was it possible to let the young people of Chunyang Palace command them? But it was even more impossible to let Chunyang Palace listen to the command of Black Tortoise Academy. Chunyang Palace was run by Yang Chun and the palace master to this point. How could they tolerate Black Tortoise Academy to pick the peaches at this time? Moreover, Yang Chun had found his own real ancestor. Even if Yang Chun was willing, would his own ancestor, Ancestor Lu, be willing to be annexed by Black Tortoise Academy? Even if these were not taken into account, could other super sect tolerate Black Tortoise Academy annexing Chunyang Palace? At this time, everyone in Chunyang Palace would rather watch them grow on their own, and even secretly make a little stumbling block to suppress the growth of Chunyang Palace. But if any sect dared to annex Chunyang Palace, it would definitely be the public enemy of all parties, and it would be attacked by all parties. Were the higher-ups of Black Tortoise Academy so stupid that they couldn't even see through this problem? Being able to stand in the immortal world for so many years, Yang Chun did not think that the higher-ups of Black Tortoise Academy were fools. In this case, Black Tortoise Academy suddenly put forward this suggestion, which was a bit confusing. What was the meaning of this? Master Yang thinks too much. Elder Lu, one of the core executives of Black Tortoise Academy, said with a smile, Master may have forgotten that our Black Tortoise Academy is actually an alliance of rogue cultivators. Chapter 2584. It was common knowledge that Black Tortoise Academy was an itinerant cultivator alliance. It could be said that there might be people in the mortal world who did not know this, but as long as it was a cultivator who ascended to the spiritual realm or the immortal realm, they would know. Of course, Yang Chen knew that Black Tortoise Academy was an itinerant cultivator alliance, but what did Elder Lu mean? The reason we established Black Tortoise Academy was so that the itinerant cultivators in the world could unite and protect the sect, so that we could cultivate in a safe environment without being bullied. Elder Lu explained with a smile, that's all. So, Elder Yao added in time, in our itinerant cultivator alliance, there is no concept of ancestors, and there is no systematic inheritance of cultivation. The sect's cultivation manuals are gathered by disciples from all over, unlike an official sect like yours, which has a complete and orderly inheritance. Listening to Elder Yao's explanation, Yang Chun suddenly had a strange feeling in his heart, but he did not say it out loud, waiting for Elder Lu and Elder Yao to say it themselves. In our itinerant cultivator alliance, there are very few close master-disciple inheritances, not to mention the deep-rooted relationship that is passed down from generation to generation. Elder Yao continued, after everyone joined forces, they discovered the various benefits of joining forces, and fought for the greatest benefits for us. Together, we can make a louder voice and fight for more benefit. For the time being, we don't have too much ambition in the immortal realm, so we just need to maintain the status quo. Elder Lu replaced Elder Yao and continued, and to be honest, with our current strength in the immortal realm, maintaining the status quo isn't too troublesome. Yang Chun absolutely believed this. A starving camel was still bigger than a horse. No matter how run-down Black Tortoise Academy was, and no matter how many disciples it had, it was still one of the super sect in the immortal realm with just its current group of experts. As long as there were no more super sect joining forces to attack Black Tortoise Academy, they could maintain their current status. Of course, if a few super sect masters were to besiege them, it wouldn't matter much whether they had disciples or not. Then what do you mean? Since the conversation had already reached this point, Yang Chen had no choice but to ask clearly. What we mean is that we are just a loose alliance of rogue cultivators. Elder Yao said with a smile. It's just that we are now facing a difficult situation. We can protect ourselves, but we don't want the disciples of the Academy in the mortal world and the spiritual realm to continue becoming independent cultivators. So, we need to find a stable sect for them to rely on. It's that simple. Then, after they ascend. Yang Chen already vaguely understood what Elder Lu and Elder Yao meant, but he still asked. After ascending, he will still be a disciple of Chunyang Palace. It has nothing to do with our Black Tortoise Academy. Elder Lu gave an affirmative answer. Even the Xuanwu Academy in the mortal world can be directly integrated into the Chunyang Palace. From then on, the Xuanwu Academy will be removed from the mortal world and the spiritual realm. It turned out that the Xuanwu Academy had such a plan, but Yang Chen didn't expect it. For a long time, Yang Chen had been conscientious in running the Chunyang Palace. He wanted to carry forward the sect, but he never thought that one day he would completely abandon the sect. However, the other party had emphasized several times that they were just an alliance of rogue cultivators, which made the reason they gave stand up to scrutiny. After all, it was not a formal sect, and they didn't have the same sect mentality as Yang Chen. They had already gained enough fame and status. In the situation where they were unable to take care of the younger generation, it was normal to entrust them to others. Whether it was the mortal world or the spiritual realm, if the disciples of the Xuanwu Academy revealed their intention to seek refuge, there would definitely be a large number of sects willing to accept them. However, all parties had many scruples. The merger of such a huge force would make people afraid. The only suitable sect seemed to be the new upstart Chunyang Palace. On the one hand, Chunyang Palace didn't pose a threat to any party. On the other hand, Chunyang Palace had a precedent of accepting the disciples of the Xiantian sect. It was indeed a good partner. Moreover, from the perspective of Chunyang Palace's care for the disciples of the Xiantian sect in the spiritual realm, entrusting the younger generation disciples to Chunyang Palace was indeed a good choice. It might not be worse than Xuanwu Academy itself. It's a big deal. Since the other party had already said this, Yang Chen had to consider it carefully. Two seniors, I still need to think about it carefully. Some things can't be decided by Chunyang Palace alone, nor can it be decided by Chunyang Palace and the Xuanwu Academy. Please forgive me. When necessary, I need to discuss with all parties. Understood. Elder Lu and Elder Yao didn't immediately force Yang Chen to agree. As Yang Chen said, this was not something that could be decided by Chunyang Palace alone, nor was it something that could be decided by Chunyang Palace and the Xuanwu Academy. They had to seek the opinions of other super sects. After settling the two people from the Xuanwu Academy, Yang Chen immediately went out and went straight to the secret meeting place that Yang Chen and the Xiantian sect had agreed on. When he set off, Yang Chen used a spell to request to meet immediately. He believed that the news would quickly spread to the Xiantian sect. The people who met with Yang Chen were still Sect Master Wang and a core member of the upper echelon. This was the standard configuration for several meetings between Yang Chen and the Xiantian sect. As soon as they met, Sect Master Wang asked anxiously, "What happened? Why do you need to use the highest level of secret meeting signal?" Yang Chen didn't hesitate and quickly explained the meaning of the Xuanwu Academy. Then, he asked anxiously, "Should we agree to this request? Is there such a good thing?" Sect Master Wang suddenly became happy. Why not? Quickly agree to them. To strengthen Chunyang Palace was to strengthen the Xiantian sect. Sect Master Wang was happy that Chunyang Palace was becoming more and more behemoth. Agree to them. The core elder of the Xiantian sect who was with Sect Master Wang also nodded and said, "However, you have to first discuss with the higher-ups of the other sect. Moreover, the representative of the Xiantian sect will object at the meeting." In a split second, he had already thought of a way to deal with it. Why? As soon as Yang Chen asked, he immediately reacted. On the surface, the Xiantian sect's objection could send a signal to all parties. The Xiantian sect didn't want people from other sect to be placed in Chunyang Palace because there were already disciples of the Xiantian sect inside. If it was done well, the Xiantian sect might be able to slowly control Chunyang Palace by relying on these. If there was an additional Xuanwu Academy, it would probably be detrimental to the Xiantian sect's plan. However, he believed that the major sect would definitely make the right choice. As long as the Xiantian sect objected, they would definitely agree. Chapter 2585. It seems that the people of Black Tortoise Academy have also fallen. Sect Master Wang let out a sigh and didn't say much. Because the higher-ups had reached a high position, and the power of the celestial world was enough to protect itself and maintain its current status, Black Tortoise Academy gave up on the disciples of Black Tortoise Academy in the mortal world. This indeed seemed very depraved. In addition, the struggle for power in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance was very obvious. Most of the time, Black Tortoise Academy was no longer the pure Black Tortoise Academy. Otherwise, Elder Lu wouldn't have delayed ascending in order to control the power of Black Tortoise Academy. In the end, she even used the power of the Zhao family to forcibly seize power. However, from the perspective of rogue cultivators, it was a normal choice. Originally, everyone was just working together to resist the external pressure and fight for their own interests. Now that the interests were in their hands, they still had to take care of the junior disciples of Black Tortoise Academy in the mortal world across the spiritual world. The difficulty had increased by hundreds of times, and a lot of resources would be consumed. From the perspective of interests, the gains did not make up for the losses. However, if they gave these disciples to Chunyang Palace, they would have an explanation for those disciples, and they would also do Chunyang Palace a huge favor. This was a more practical favor than accepting the disciples of Xiantian sect in the spiritual world. Black Tortoise Academy took the initiative to send them over. In contrast, it would be more favorable to Chunyang Palace. He got rid of the burden, and he got a solid favor from a big sect with unlimited potential. This deal was definitely worth it. In this case, Sect Master Wang could at least be sure that Black Tortoise Academy would not be a big threat to Xiantian sect in the future. For this reason, they could even have a higher status in the heavenly court to win over people's hearts. You go and do it. The core elder gave Yang Chen an instruction. Let Black Tortoise Academy handle it themselves. Don't take the initiative. When the time comes, it will depend on the other sect's choice. Anyway, no matter what, Chunyang Palace will not lose anything, right? This was the truth. If it was successful, Chunyang Palace would have a large number of new troops in their hands, and their strength would grow. If it failed, at most, the status quo would be maintained. The price Yang Chen had to pay was only 2 trips, and there would be no loss at all. As long as he dealt with the Black Heaven Gate, everything would be fine. Just as the core elder had said, they wouldn't suffer any losses anyway, so why not? No matter what, he had to give it a try. Elder Yao was still waiting for Yang Chen's reply. Yang Chen gave Elder Yao a very clear reply. If the other sect did not object, Chunyang Palace was willing to take in the disciples of Xuanwu Academy in the mortal world. Elder Yao and the upper echelons of the Black Tortoise Academy knew very well that it would be impossible to resolve the issue in this manner without the approval of the other sect. Therefore, they agreed with Yang Chen's suggestion and gathered the representatives of all the major sects for a discussion. What? The disciples of Xuanwu Academy in the mortal world will be integrated into Chunyang Palace? No way. Sure enough, as soon as the representatives from the various sects gathered, the Black Tortoise Academy's representative immediately raised a strong objection from the Black Heaven sect. The betrayal of Black Tortoise Academy in the spiritual realm is only a matter of 1 or 2 people. Moreover, Black Tortoise Academy in the spiritual realm has already paid the price. A strong objection required a strong reason, and at the same time, a solution. Now that the misunderstanding has been cleared up, Black Tortoise Academy can completely rebuild Black Tortoise Academy in the spiritual realm. Why must you make such a choice? This was the solution that the Black Heaven sect had proposed. It sounded very fair. Everyone would not care about the mistakes made by Black Tortoise Academy in the past, and Black Tortoise Academy in the spiritual realm could be rebuilt. It seemed like the Black Heaven sect was very magnanimous. However, when all the sect representatives heard this, they could only spit in their hearts. Rebuild Black Tortoise Academy? That was easy to say. The Black Heaven sect had already disappeared from both the mortal world and the spiritual realm. Therefore, no matter how the two worlds fought, it had nothing to do with them. Of course, the Black Heaven sect was willing to support any sect to grow in power in both the spiritual realm and the mortal world and compete with the other sects for resources. Supporting the rebuilding of Black Tortoise Academy was clearly making things difficult for the other sects. Rebuilding a small sect was fine, but what about the territories of Black Tortoise Academy that had already been divided? Making the other major sects spit out the meat that they had swallowed? How was that possible? It didn't matter if the Black Heaven sect had no ambitions, but what about the other sects? It was obviously to disgust the other sects. In addition, on the surface, the major sects seemed to be maintaining a balance. Currently, the major enemy of all parties was the Zhao family. For the time being, the Taoist, Demon, and Itinerant Cultivators Alliance were cooperating sincerely, but there was still competition. The addition of Black Tortoise Academy meant that the Itinerant Cultivators Alliance had more power, which was not a good thing for the other forces. The fact that Black Tortoise Academy was willing to abolish its own martial arts and join Chunyang Palace was a good thing for the other sect. Not to mention that there was one less big competitor. Although the strength of Chunyang Palace would also improve, it was not enough to threaten the other parties. In particular, if there were more disciples of Black Tortoise Academy in Chunyang Palace, there would be a direct competition with the disciples of the Black Heaven sect who had already entered Chunyang Palace. In addition to the original direct disciples of Chunyang Palace, it could be said that there were 3 countries competing for hegemony inside Chunyang Palace. An internally unstable Chunyang Palace was a good Chunyang Palace for the sect. Why did the Black Heaven sect oppose it? Wasn't it because they still had an unrealistic fantasy that one day, those disciples of the Black Heaven sect who joined Chunyang Palace would control Chunyang Palace and then join Black Heaven sect again when the time was right? It was not that the Black Heaven sect had never done this before. Why were they called Taishanmen in the mortal world? Wasn't it because the Black Heaven sect in the mortal world had been destroyed once and sent people to rebuild the sect? When they secretly developed, they changed their name to Taishanmen. If there were more disciples of Black Tortoise Academy, then whether these disciples were loyal to Black Tortoise Academy or Chunyang Palace, they would try their best to resist the power of the Black Heaven sect. This would also reduce the influence of the Black Heaven sect in Chunyang Palace to a minimum. Black Tortoise Academy was willing to give up the territory and resources of the mortal world and the spiritual realm in exchange for stability in the immortal realm. It could also be regarded as an indirect withdrawal from the competition of the major sect. All parties could be said to welcome it. How could they tolerate the destruction of the Black Heaven sect? Why should the Black Heaven sect interfere in this matter of mutual consent? Immediately, a representative of the sect jumped out to oppose the Black Heaven sect. All parties began to fight with each other. There was only one purpose. Most sect was willing to see the development of Black Tortoise Academy and Chunyang Palace, but the Black Heaven sect strongly opposed it. As the elder of the Black Heaven sect had expected, whatever the Black Heaven sect strongly opposed was welcomed by the major sect. All parties expressed their views on this matter. After arguing for dozens of days, the representative of the Black Heaven sect finally reluctantly passed this matter under the strong opposition of all parties. Chapter 2586. Let me say this first. The Xiantian sect still has reservations about this. Unable to win against so many sect representatives, the representative of the Xiantian sect could only agree resentfully. However, he did not completely give in and still left his words here. At this point, everyone could see that the representative of the Xiantian sect was powerless to reverse the situation. Therefore, everyone let the representative express his dissatisfaction, but no one suppressed him. The benefits that they wanted to fight for had been achieved, so there was no need to take advantage of such a small argument. However, although everyone agreed that the spiritual world's Xuanwu Academy would be merged into Chunyang Palace, it did not mean that the matter was settled. The spiritual world was fine because the Xuanwu Academy only existed in name. However, in the mortal world, the Xuanwu Academy was still a behemoth, and Chunyang Palace was also a supersect. The merger of these two big guys was not something that could be done overnight. Chunyang Palace and the Xuanwu Academy used the method of consciousness cloning to descend to the mortal world at the same time and passed on the decision from above. Chunyang Palace was fine. Of course, they were happy to annex the Xuanwu Academy to strengthen the sect, but the Xuanwu Academy might not agree. After all, the Xuanwu Academy was also a veteran supersect. If they bowed to a new upstart, they would lose face. However, this was news from the immortal world, so they had to believe it. While they were hesitating, the other sect also sent the same message. Even if a decision was made in the immortal world, if the major sect did not pass on the news, the major sect would never allow this kind of thing to happen. Just this major event alone took almost 100 years for the information to be sent down intermittently. Only then did the various parties come to a consensus. The Xuanwu Academy in the mortal world was not so willing to be merged into Chunyang Palace. Of course, this was only a superficial merger. It would take a long time for them to really agree. During this time, the people of the Xuanwu Academy and the direct descendants of Chunyang Palace would be divided into two distinct factions. There might even be internal strife. This was only in the mortal world. When they reached the spiritual world, there would be another Xiantian sect faction. At that time, it would be a real competition between the three countries. He believed that the Chunyang Palace at that time must be very exciting. All parties were very satisfied. It seemed that Chunyang Palace had taken a big advantage, but in fact they had swallowed a volcano. No one knew how uncomfortable their stomach was. A Chunyang Palace with endless internal strife was the most in line with the interests of the sect. Especially recently, Chunyang Palace had risen too fast, which made all parties feel vaguely threatened. Although everyone knew that the Master's Chunyang Palace now accepted could not have much sense of belonging to Chunyang Palace, it was the best situation for all parties if they could slow down the development of Chunyang Palace, which was thriving day by day. The Black Tortoise Academy was very happy. Without the burden of the younger generation, they did not have to worry about being criticized by the younger generation. In any case, they had already found a home for them. It was good that the immortal world could still maintain the status of a high and mighty super sect. The immortal world Xiantian sect was very happy. Their secret sect had another chance to develop. They had annexed a super sect, which meant that as long as Xiantian sect was willing, they could restore their former glory at any time and anywhere. Chunyang Palace was also very happy. They had received the reserve force of a super sect without bloodshed, and their foundation was becoming more and more solid. Even if there would be some small stumbles in the development, would there be no difference between factions in the sect if the development was normal? After all, the sect was still strong. Perhaps these disciples did not have a sense of belonging to Chunyang Palace yet. That was because Li Yanchang, the ancestor of Chunyang Palace, sounded unknown. But one day, when Ancestor Lu showed his name, he believed that whether it was the authentic disciples of Chunyang Palace, Xiantian sect, or Black Tortoise Academy, they would be willing to worship this ancestor. In the face of such a good thing, even Neza didn't know how to describe his feelings. He really couldn't understand why such a big pie fell from the sky and fell into Yang Chen's mouth for no reason. Even Yang Chen didn't intend to open his mouth, but someone insisted on giving him such a delicious pie. This is the gap between people. Yang Chen and Neza were completely free to communicate, and they didn't even care about the content of their conversation. It was as if they were two best friends with no taboo. This is the problem of people's character. I have a good character. I can't help it. Bah! Neza spat at Yang Chen with disdain. It's all because you happen to be here. Otherwise, how could there be such a good thing? There are so many sects. Why am I the only one who happened to be here? Yang Chen didn't refute. He just followed Neza's words and said, "This is luck. Great luck. You have to admire it." Neza was speechless. This kind of thing really couldn't be described with other words than luck. Moreover, Neza could communicate with Yang Chen on an equal footing because he was optimistic about Yang Chen's future and admired Yang Chen's way of doing things. Although Yang Chen sometimes didn't directly make a move, which made Neza feel a little indecisive, the result of Yang Chen not making a move was that more masters would help him kill more enemies, which was something that Neza couldn't do in any case. He could kill many people by himself, scare many people, and even threaten some masters to kill his companions. However, he really couldn't let so many masters take the initiative to help him, especially after they helped Yang Chen. They still owed Yang Chen a favor. It could only be said that Yang Chen indeed had great luck. Since Yang Chen had great luck, Neza, a master with discerning eyes, seemed to be more and more righteous, which made Neza very satisfied. Now that Neza's injury had almost recovered to about 80%, he could recover by himself even without Yang Chen's help. However, after all these years, Neza had liked and gotten used to that kind of healing method. Therefore, he still asked Yang Chen to help him every day. No matter how I look at it, my injuries should be more or less healed. We can consider looking for 3 eyes. Neza felt that he didn't need to worry too much about his current injury. Even if he had to fight against Yang Jian, he could also fight against him. He couldn't wait to find masters to deal with the big Kuan together. However, before that, Neza had to find a way to solve the conflict between Yang Jian and Yang Chen. No matter what, even if Yang Chen wasn't favored by Yang Jian, he had to find a chance to talk with Yang Jian face to face in order to completely solve the misunderstanding. Of course, if the misunderstanding couldn't be solved, they could only fight. Chapter 2587. Where is Erlang Shin? Neza had already found out that he was going to find Yang Jian, so Yang Chen had to ask this question. To be honest, Yang Chen didn't want to face Yang Jian at this time. It wasn't that Yang Chen didn't have courage and was a coward. When the difference in cultivation between the two sides was too big, it was not a smart thing to try to provoke. It had nothing to do with courage. In Yang Chen's view, it was a provocation to go to Yang Jian and try to persuade him to join. If Yang Chen was Yang Jian, he would definitely think so. Even if Yang Chen had the cultivation of the middle stage of Golden Immortal and his combat power was even higher than the middle stage of Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, compared with Yang Jian, he was still a small character who could be killed with one finger. The problem was that Neza, who Yang Chen also couldn't resist and persuade, had made up his mind to meet Yang Jian at this time. So, Yang Chen had to force himself to go. Offending Yang Jian was a big trouble, and offending Neza was also not a small matter. At this time, although Neza had been shocked by Yang Chen's powerful background, it didn't mean that he wouldn't dare to do anything to him. 3 Eyes is a proud guy. Neza didn't care about Yang Chen's embarrassment. But since Yang Chen was asking about Yang Jian's whereabouts and was already on the way, he didn't mind revealing some information to Yang Chen. If you were 3 Eyes, where would you hide? How could a proud guy be willing to hide in the immortal realm? But in Yang Chen's memory, there was no whereabouts of Yang Jian in the immortal realm. How could Yang Chen guess? But since Neza said so, he must have his reasons. He only revealed a clue of pride, so Yang Chen guessed along this clue. If it were me, I would just swagger around in the Heavenly Court's capital. Let's see what the new Jade Emperor and the Heavenly Court can do to me. Yang Chen didn't mind imagining Yang Jian as arrogantly as he could. Living in the capital of the Heavenly Court like this was the greatest insult to the new Heavenly Court. How did you know it was the capital of the Heavenly Court? Neza seemed to be very surprised that Yang Chen could think of this place. Because you were hiding there. Without any hesitation, Yang Chen brought up Neza and said, "You're still hiding in the capital of the Heavenly Court even though you're so badly injured. If Yang Jian has any pride, he wouldn't be hiding somewhere else." He was obviously flattering Neza, but Neza obviously enjoyed it very much and was very satisfied with Yang Chen's answer. Neza patted Yang Chen's shoulder and nodded, "With your knowledge, you're smarter than 99% of the people in the immortal world. Erlang Shen isn't really hiding in the capital of the Heavenly Court, is he?" Yang Chen didn't expect that he could guess it casually according to Neza's character. His eyes widened and he couldn't believe it. "You really know him well. You hit the nail on the head." Neza smiled and said, "Perhaps if I tell him about this, he'll feel like a close friend." If Yang Jian really was in the capital of the Heavenly Court, Yang Chen didn't know how to imagine seeing Yang Jian. Fighting in the capital of the Heavenly Court would definitely be a wonderful feeling. Even though old Demon Yi was so powerful in his previous life that half of the Heavenly Court chased after him, he wasn't so powerful that he dared to cause trouble in the capital of the Heavenly Court. As expected of a fierce person, his way of doing things wasn't something ordinary people could understand. Neza took Yang Chen to the capital of the Heavenly Court. Before, Yang Chen thought that it was a famous mountain on the edge, or a place where fierce beasts ran rampant. Ordinary cultivators would never dare to enter. He didn't expect it to be the capital of the Heavenly Court. Did this mean that the most dangerous place was also the safest? Was Erlang Shen injured back then? This was what Yang Chen was interested in. Even Neza was heavily injured, so Erlang Shen shouldn't have had it easy, right? Unless he wasn't in the immortal world at that time like Ancestor Lu, Yang Chen's Ancestor Lu, he wouldn't have been affected. Even Howling Celestial Dog was captured and beheaded. Yang Jian probably wouldn't have had it easy back then either. "You're not much better than me," Neza said confidently. "There must be a lot of secrets between Yang Jian and Neza, or else Neza wouldn't know so much. But that guy has a lot of brothers, so he's much better than me who's alone." As much as he didn't want to admit it, Neza couldn't lie. "His injuries definitely aren't as heavy as mine. After so many years, he should have recovered by now." In other words, Yang Jian's injuries could be slowly healed with his own cultivation. From this point of view, he was indeed in a much better condition than Neza. "What if we fight each other because of a disagreement?" Yang Chen had to consider this problem. It wasn't worth it to lose his life because of Neza's anxiousness and arrogance. He had to consider this point no matter what. Now that Gong Sunling wasn't by his side, he didn't have that many helpers, and he also didn't have the means to withstand Yang Jian's attacks. He had to consider this in advance. Trust me, Yang Jian definitely wouldn't want to cause a huge commotion in the capital of the Heavenly Court. Neza smiled and comforted Yang Chen. "Plus, don't you still have me? I won't let him kill you in front of me." Hearing Neza's answer, Yang Chen was speechless. Could there be a more unreliable answer than this? What did he mean by not wanting to cause a huge commotion? If he was really hot-blooded, he wouldn't care about where he was. Plus, how much commotion would Yang Jian need if he wanted to kill him? Raising his hand, waving the three-pointed, double-edged sword, and cutting it in half. It was so simple, how much commotion could it cause? Yang Chen really didn't want to face Yang Jian at this time. However, from another point of view, an ugly daughter-in-law would inevitably meet her parents-in-law. In fact, it didn't matter when they met. Could a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal like Yang Chen be a match for Yang Jian? Even an innumerable tribulation true immortal couldn't guarantee it. Since he might never catch up with Yang Jian's cultivation, there really wasn't much difference if he met Yang Jian when his cultivation was high or low. Bracing himself, Yang Chen and Neza came to the vicinity of the capital of the heavenly court. To enter the city, Neza's image was definitely not suitable, so Yang Chen had to bring him along. Fortunately, Neza had fallen in love with the feeling of living in the Dragon Palace. Perhaps it gave him the feeling of living in the palace of his old enemy, which made him feel very relaxed. It wasn't a big deal for the commander of the Immortal beheading platform to enter the capital of the heavenly court, especially when Yang Chen had a supply of bottleneck dispelling pills. The guards of the southern heavenly gate all smiled and watched Yang Chen enter the southern heavenly gate. Chapter 2588. Where is the capital city? Yang Chen immediately asked Neza's exact location after entering the southern heavenly gate. Since he was going to face it, it didn't matter if he met him sooner or later. The earlier he died, the earlier he could be reincarnated. Take a walk around the capital city. Neza gave Yang Chen an answer that made Yang Chen vomit blood. I don't know where he is, take your time to look for him. Neza didn't know where Yang Jian was, but he still swore that Yang Jian was in the capital city of the heavenly court. This made Yang Chen speechless. Neza was too unreliable. If you're a three-eyed man, where would you hide in the capital city? Neza asked a hypothetical question for Yang Chen again. In fact, he wanted to find Yang Jian's whereabouts through Yang Chen's analysis. Are you sure he's in the capital city? Yang Chen confirmed again. He must be there. Neza answered with certainty. Although he didn't know Yang Jian's exact location, he knew this guy's personality. If you're arrogant enough, pick somewhere near the soaring heaven palace. Yang Chen answered without hesitation. Since he was so arrogant that he hid in the capital city of the heavenly court even when he was seriously injured, he might as well let him be arrogant. What was the most important place in the capital city of the heavenly court? Wasn't it the soaring heaven palace? Of course, Yang Chen was also a little dissatisfied with Neza's irresponsible speculation. Let's go and take a look. Neza immediately asked Yang Chen to rush over without hesitation. The capital city of the heavenly court wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. It was 1,000,000 miles in radius. When would they be able to find it one by one? Why didn't you hide in the soaring heaven palace when you were seriously injured back then? Yang Chen rolled his eyes at Neza this time. How stupid would he have to be to think of hiding in the soaring heaven palace? Let's not talk about how strict the security there is. Before the new Jade Emperor ascended the throne, the inside and the surroundings had already been checked countless times, right? No matter how weak the experts of the new heavenly court were in one-on-one combat, they still relied on numbers to severely injure the great god Neza to that extent. Yang Jian wasn't any better. If he was really strong, how could he not even protect the howling celestial dog? Hiding near the soaring Heaven King Palace with a severely injured body, wasn't that courting death? Then let's look around the Immortal slaying platform. Neza also understood this, so he didn't care about Yang Chen's retort. He immediately changed the topic. Ask your subordinates if there is any place around where the demon masters live. It's best if it's a place with lush vegetation. I guess it's over there. Yang Jian had always been with the 6 Maishan brothers in the immortal world, and there were also 1,200 grass gods serving them. Those gods had all been enlightened by Yang Jian, so they didn't need to be taken seriously. However, the 6 Maishan brothers were all expert. According to their living habits, they would probably enlighten grass gods to serve them, so finding a place with lush vegetation was indeed a goal. In addition, Yang Jian was essentially the same as Neza. They were both people who killed people without batting an eyelid. If the killing intent on his body couldn't be suppressed, it would definitely be discovered by the expert. Therefore, the Immortal slaying platform, which was a fierce place that erupted with killing intent, became the best cover for everyone to hide their aura. From this point of view, It was very likely that Yang Jian was near the Immortal slaying platform. This also shocked Yang Chen after he figured it out. If that was really the case, it could be said that Yang Chen had been living under Yang Jian's nose for so many years, and Yang Jian could take his head at any time. Just thinking about it gave him lingering fear. "I'll believe you this time." Yang Chen gave Neza such an answer, and then went straight to the Immortal slaying platform. The arrival of the commander, who was also a commander who was beneficial to everyone, made the heavenly soldiers on the Immortal slaying platform greet him eagerly. Yang Chen was also very generous. He gave each of them a bottleneck-dispelling elixir. Whether they were genuine immortals or not, they would need it sooner or later. Everyone was overjoyed when they got the bottleneck-dispelling elixir. When Yang Chen asked about the surrounding situation, they naturally told him everything they knew. There were 2 places with lush vegetation, but there were no traces of people in these 2 places. After asking for the direction, Yang Chen went there directly. If Yang Jian wanted to hide, the heavenly soldiers on the Immortal slaying platform would definitely not find him. "Don't worry. If Yang Jian is here, he will definitely come out." Neza was very confident. The source of his confidence was his fire-tipped spear. Neza left the tip of the fire-tipped spear outside the Dragon Palace, and then activated the killing intent in his body to release it. This area was still within the range of the killing intent of the Immortal slaying platform. A little bit of killing intent released by Neza would not attract the attention of the experts in the capital. This also benefited from the fact that Yang Chen had killed too many masters on the Immortal beheading stage. The killing intent of the entire Immortal beheading stage was so strong that even the heavenly soldiers did not dare to approach it in the first hundreds of years, let alone other cultivators. No one was willing to come to this execution ground for no reason and get into trouble. This also made it convenient for Neza and Yang Jian to hide safely. Although Yang Chen did not believe that Yang Jian was hiding nearby, when another strange killing intent suddenly appeared and echoed Neza's killing intent, and when he saw the proud smile on Neza's face, he knew that Neza was right this time. Yang Jian was hiding in this area. A tree spirit suddenly appeared and bowed to Yang Chen. Then, without saying anything, he turned around and left. Not far behind him, a secret entrance appeared. It was obviously the entrance of a space magic treasure. As expected, Yang Jian was richer than Neza. He hid in a space magic treasure and used the aura of the Immortal slaying platform to cover his killing intent. Then, he leisurely healed his injuries and cultivated in his cave abode. It was much more comfortable than Neza hiding in the archway of the Immortal slaying platform. "You, Showerhead, Three-Eyed, are still alive?" 2 voices sounded at the same time, as if they had known each other for many years. Then, Yang Chen saw the 3-eyed Erlang deity Yang Jian. Erlang deity's complexion was more than 100 times better than when Yang Chen saw Neza. Although he did not look at his peak, he was definitely an expert who could kill Yang Chen in a second. "There's a big koan. Do you want to fight it together?" Neza and Yang Jian did not talk much. As soon as they saw each other, Neza immediately asked Yang Jian. As he asked, he waved at the 6 experts who were bowing to Neza. They seemed to be very familiar with each other. "Big koan," Yang Jian repeated, but he did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Yang Chen and said, "Your killing intent is so strong. Are you the executioner who killed the celestial dog on the Immortal slaying platform?" "It is this younger generation, Junior." Yang Chen gave a deep bow to Yang Jian and admitted his identity. "You could have taken the road to heaven, but you chose to barge into hell." Yang Jian sneered. The 6 experts behind him had already taken out their weapons and were ready to attack. Chapter 2589. "Hey, 3 Eyes, give me some face." Neza couldn't help but yell at Yang Chen for being threatened as soon as he came up. He felt very embarrassed. "I'll give you some face. I won't touch him before we finish talking." Yang Jian glanced at Yang Chen with a murderous look, then turned to Neza and said, "However, it will be a different matter when we finish talking." Neza couldn't help but stare at Yang Jian angrily. Yang Jian didn't care at all. He looked at Neza with his normal eyes, but the eye on his forehead was staring at Yang Chen with a murderous look. Yang Chen understood that being stared at by Yang Jian's third eye basically meant that he couldn't escape. Even if he was in heaven or in hell, Yang Jian could rely on that eye to find him. In the past, Yang Chen could rely on the high speed of the mysterious Sky Dark Sea shuttle to escape the pursuit of some expert. However, in front of Yang Jian, Yang Chen's chance of escaping was very slim. While Neza and Yang Jian were staring at each other, the 6 experts behind Yang Jian had already occupied 6 directions and surrounded Yang Chen. In fact, this step was really unnecessary. Now that Yang Chen and Neza were in Yang Jian's space magic treasure, Neza might not be able to be trapped if Yang Jian didn't let them go, but the space magic treasure was more than enough to trap Yang Chen. Those 6 experts were probably Yang Jian's good friends, the Mei Shan brothers. In terms of cultivation, the Mei Shan brothers were only a few levels lower than Yang Jian, but they were much higher than Yang Chen. It was not difficult for them to kill Yang Chen in a second. In a situation where he could lose his head at any time, Yang Chen didn't care about everyone's murderous looks and looked around curiously. To be honest, in his previous life, he had only heard of the names of Erlang Shen, Immortal Xianxing, and the Mei Shan brothers, but he had never seen them in person. Now was the right time to see their appearance and aura. The surrounding murderous aura was so thick that it almost solidified. If an ordinary cultivator were to encounter such a situation, they would probably be paralyzed with fear. But who was Yang Chen? In any case, he was the executioner of the Immortal beheading platform. The number of famous experts he had killed was more than what most cultivators had heard of. Why would he care about the threat of killing intent? This used to be Yang Chen's means of threatening others and scaring others. How could he be scared? Perfected Lord Erlang Xianxing, along with the 6 Meishan brothers, you guys are truly great heroes for threatening a mere golden immortal junior in your own territory. Great God, Neza sneered at the side. The moment he opened his mouth, he even included Erlang Shin and the 6 Meishan brothers. Admirable. Impressive. Yang Jian blushed, and the 6 Meishan brothers didn't fare any better. Only now did they realize that their actions were actually directed at a golden immortal junior that they usually didn't even spare a glance at. It was a little shameful to say it out loud. They didn't even have a chance to refute Great God Neza's mockery because it was the truth. Erlang Shen and the others couldn't be blamed for making a big fuss over a minor issue. After all, Neza was the one who brought Yang Chen here. They could completely ignore Yang Chen's identity, but Neza was different. He was someone that even Yang Jian had to be wary of. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Yang Jian didn't want to have a falling out with Neza. Their fear of Neza was also transferred to Yang Chen. When Neza's mocking words left his mouth, they realized that they had lost their composure. You can ignore me, but... Neza paused to ease the atmosphere a little. Then, he continued, you have to give some face to Ox Nose, right? Ox Nose? Which Ox Nose? Yang Jian asked with a cold expression. To be honest, there weren't many Ox Noses in the immortal world that he had to give face to. Yang Jian really didn't want it to be any of them. Neza was just waiting for him to ask. After Yang Jian asked, Neza smiled and answered, which other Ox Nose? The one that's good at wine, women, avarice, and temper. Lu Chunyang? Yang Jian stared at Yang Chen with his third eye and continued in a cold tone, so what if he has a bit of Lu Chunyang's aura? Lu Chunyang hasn't shown himself for tens of thousands of years. Do I have to give face, just because he has a bit of aura related to Lu Chunyang? Dream on. You don't even give a seat to an old friend? Neza didn't answer directly. Instead, he spoke in a tone, even if Yang Chen is my enemy, he's still a junior that I brought to meet you. He's a guest from afar. Is this how you, Erlang Shen, treat your guests? Since Yang Jian said that he wouldn't touch Yang Chun before they finished their discussion, then he wouldn't. In Neza's eyes, Yang Jian still had this bit of credibility. That was why he was so fearless. Senior, even a prisoner awaiting execution gets a bowl of wine to behead him. Yang Chen also joined in the fun. He didn't seem afraid of angering Yang Jian at all. Neza kept nodding as if he agreed with Yang Chen's point of view. Yang Jian stared at Neza and Yang Chen. Both of them looked like they didn't care at all. This made Yang Jian angrier and angrier. However, in the end, Yang Jian still held back his anger and restrained his murderous aura. He shouted, "Men, serve the wine." A group of grass gods quickly appeared and deftly tidied up the scene, immediately turning it into a pavilion to receive guests. The big table was set and the dishes were served. Yang Jian and the 6 Meishan brothers sat on one side. Yang Jian was in the middle with 3 brothers on each side. Opposite them were Neza and Yang Chen. Yang Chen regarded himself as a junior. He couldn't help it. This was the truth. It wasn't something he could decide. He was a junior, so he naturally had to take the initiative to toast to his elders. Therefore, except for Neza, who was smiling and drinking with Yang Chen, Yang Jian and the 6 Meishan brothers were all toasting with Yang Chen with anger. When they were drinking, it was estimated that they wanted to give Yang Chen the last chance to drink. "What's the relationship between this kid and Ox Nose?" Yang Jian finally asked after a few rounds of wine and dishes. "He's Ox Nose Jr. He's been serving Madame Bai in the spiritual realm. What do you think?" Neza didn't keep Yang Jian in suspense. He directly revealed the relationship between Yang Chen and Ancestor Lu. "Ox Nose, I haven't seen him for tens of thousands of years." Yang Jian didn't finish his sentence, but it was obvious that he didn't believe it. "I didn't believe it at first either. I only knew about it after I saw Ox Nose." Neza knew that he had to involve Ancestor Lu if he wanted to convince Yang Jian. Otherwise, if Yang Jian killed Yang Chen in a rage, how was he going to explain it to Ancestor Lu? Not to mention that behind Yang Chen, in addition to Ancestor Lu, there was a more headache for the Tao ancestor. Chapter 2590. Ox Nose also appeared? Yang Jian was very concerned about the news of Ancestor Lu's appearance. Neza did not hide anything and directly told him Ancestor Lu's whereabouts over the years. These were all said by Ancestor Lu himself, and not made up by Neza. Including the origin of Ancestor Lu and the Pure Yang Palace, a series of things said. It was already 2 hours later. Only then did Yang Jian know that Yang Chen and Ancestor Lu had such a relationship. Although Yang Chen and Ancestor Lu were not very close, as Neza said, Yang Chen had served Madame Bai for thousands of years in the spiritual realm, and Madame Bai treated Yang Chen like a nephew. Even if Ancestor Lu was unwilling, Ancestor Lu had to be obedient. "You want to force me to submit by relying on the prestige of the lotus head and the ox nose? You are not powerful enough." Yang Jian finally began to be serious with Yang Chen, but he was still very dissatisfied with his words, especially when he looked down on this kind of person who always relied on other people's prestige. This was what he hated the most. "I dare not." Yang Chen hurriedly cupped his hands and saluted. If Yang Jian thought that he was suppressing him like this, Yang Chen would definitely be in trouble. "Three Eyes, don't go too far." Neza could not stand it anymore. "Yang Jian, what do you mean? You don't give me face even when I bring people here? You and I know about the Celestial Hound." Since Yang Jian insisted on it, Neza had to say something to him. He said, "He was just a mortal at that time. He was just an executioner. Don't you dare to vent your anger on a junior instead of the real master." Neza's words were also reasonable. If he wanted to talk about the enemy of the howling celestial dog, he couldn't find Yang Chen. Just like Yang Chen's mantra before he used the knife, every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. You and I have no grudges in the past, and it is our duty. Yang Chen could not be blamed on the cause and effect. Reason with me? Yang Jian sneered. If I were willing to reason with people, then I wouldn't be Yang Jian. Why would Erlang Shen care about the reason for killing people? If he wanted to kill, then kill. What does karma have to do with me? In this matter, the howling celestial dog was killed by Yang Chen. This was a fact that could not be changed. You won't even give face to me and Ox Nose? Neza sneered. Then? There was a Dao ancestor behind Yang Chen. Others might not give him face, but how could he not give Dao ancestor face? However, just as he said this, he was stopped by Yang Chen. Yang Jian was obviously the kind of person who could be persuaded by reason but not cowed by force. If he used his powerful background to force him to submit, it would instead make Yang Jian furious, and he might even kill him. That would not be good. Senior, what Dao do you have? Please write it down. Yang Chen directly said to Yang Jian, the howling celestial dog was killed by this younger generation junior. This younger generation junior has never denied it. If you want to fight or kill, this younger generation junior will recognize it. However, this younger generation junior will not stretch out his neck to be killed. You have guts. Yang Jian's expression loosened a little. I like killing responsible people like you. It seemed that Yang Chen's words did not ease Yang Jian's mood. Instead, it had the opposite effect. This made Neza groan in his heart. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't be in such a hurry to find Yang Jian. If he went with Ancestor Lu, the effect would probably be better. He still underestimated Yang Jian's friendship with the howling celestial dog. This time, he was in big trouble. You still have a bit of the howling celestial dog's aura on you. Why is that? After saying that, Yang Jian suddenly changed the topic and asked another question. The aura of the howling celestial dog? Yang Chen was stunned and immediately understood. When he moved, the figure of Xiao Tian appeared directly in front of everyone. Before Senior Howling Celestial Dog left, he told this junior the location of a drop of blood essence he left in the mortal world. Yang Chen pointed to Xiao Tian and said, this junior used it all on this junior's monster pet. Xiao Tian was obviously able to stimulate the blood of the Yazi in his body because of the blood essence of the howling celestial dog. Of course, the blood essence of the howling celestial dog had the smell of the howling celestial dog. It was not that Yang Jian was wrong. Yang Chen actually raised a monster pet, which was unexpected by Yang Jian. The howling celestial dog was also Yang Jian's monster pet. For the cultivator who also raised a monster pet, Yang Jian also had the intention to be close. If it wasn't for Yang Chen killing the howling celestial dog, there was such a knot that could not be untied. Just the blood essence of the howling celestial dog in Xiao Tian's body, Yang Jian would have a careful communication with Yang Chen. It was a pity. Good guy, it turned out to be a Yazi. After seeing the race of Xiao Tian, Yang Jian also couldn't help but praise in his heart. To be able to find a Yazi blood in the mortal world, Yang Chen's luck was really against the sky. It was a pity. You actually gave him the wishful golden pagoda? When Yang Jian saw what the pagoda that Xiao Tian was sacrificially refining was, he couldn't help but stare at it with his 3 eyes wide open and turned to Neza. You don't even care about killing your father. I still have to thank him for helping me kill the old guy. Neza snorted coldly and said to Yang Jian, it's just a rotten pagoda, what's the big deal about giving it? If you didn't kill the howling celestial dog, maybe we can still be friends. Yang Jian turned to Yang Chen again. Unfortunately, there is no if in this world. For the sake of the showerhead and the ox nose, I will give you a chance. As soon as Yang Jian opened his mouth, he blocked Neza's mouth. It was already clear that he was giving you face, so don't say anything more. Please advise me, senior. Yang Chen waited for Yang Jian to speak honestly. How could he not bow his head when he was under the eaves? He was a fish on the chopping block. This was the current situation. As long as you can escape from my pursuit within 100 years, the previous things will be written off. Yang Jian made a request coldly. Can't you always make the impossible possible? Let me see what you can do. If you are still alive after 100 years, I will treat you to a drink. If you die within 100 years, I will personally bury you. It's not a disgrace to you, right? Thank you, Senior. Yang Chen directly picked up a bowl of wine and gave a toast to Erlang Shen. Erlang Shen didn't have the kind of contempt before this time, and drank a bowl of wine with Yang Chen seriously. However, don't think about letting the showerhead help you resist. As long as other people make a move, it doesn't count. Yang Jian spoke again, but it blocked all of Yang Chen's escape routes. Junior agrees. Yang Chen agreed to Yang Jian's request without saying anything. However, this younger generation junior has a small request. Please let this younger generation junior take the lead. Within an hour, you can't make a move against this younger generation junior, nor can you trap this younger generation junior in this Immortal's cave. Yes. What kind of person is Yang Jian? This is almost not a request. He has to chase for 100 years. It is impossible to directly trap Yang Chen in the space cave. As for saying that Yang Chen can't make a move within an hour, it is even simpler. Let Yang Chen escape for an hour first, and he is also confident to catch up. Please forgive this junior's presumptuous. After getting Yang Jian's nod, his courage suddenly grew. The immortal beheading blade instantly appeared in Xiao Tian's mouth, and Xiao Tian also went to Yang Chen's hand. Raising the immortal beheading blade high, Yang Chen slashed toward the opposite Erlang Shen. Chapter 2591. Yang Jian already promised not to attack Yang Chen for 2 hours. This meant that even if Yang Chen attacked him, he couldn't attack Yang Chen. He could only block or dodge, otherwise he would be going back on his word. Yang Jian wouldn't do such a humiliating thing in front of Neza. So, even if Yang Chen took out his sword to attack Yang Jian could only pinch his nose and accept it. Yang Chen's attack stunned Neza, Yang Jian, and the 6 Maishan brothers. Neza immediately understood what Yang Chen meant and laughed out loud. In terms of cultivation, Yang Chen was definitely not Yang Jian's opponent. Not to mention a few moves with Yang Jian, if Yang Jian didn't look at Neza's face, Yang Chen would have been killed before he even saw Yang Jian's shadow. But now, Yang Jian was forced by Yang Chen's words and agreed not to attack for 2 hours. This 2 hours was the time for Yang Chen to attack. It was clear that Yang Chen was also unhappy and wanted to attack Erlang Shen for 2 hours to vent his anger. Even if he would be chased to death soon, he would at least attack Erlang Shen for 2 hours. Run? How could the dignified Erlang Xianxing escape from an intermediate golden immortal junior? How could such a thing happen to Yang Jian? So, Yang Jian definitely couldn't run. He could only dodge or block at most. Perhaps blocking was a good idea. Thinking about it, it could prevent Yang Jian from being slashed to the point where his face was covered in dirt. The 6 Maishan brothers didn't expect this junior Yang Chen to have such guts. After gaining the upper hand for 2 hours, he didn't immediately use this time to run away. Instead, he turned around and attacked Erlang Shen. When they reacted and wanted to stop him, they were stopped by Neza. Yang Jian agreed to it himself. Why are you guys interfering? To be honest, Neza was also unhappy that Yang Jian didn't give him face. Wouldn't it be a waste if he didn't see Yang Jian's dirty face? How could he let the 6 Maishan brothers spoil his plan? However, Neza was also very worried. It was nice for Yang Chen to kill Yang Jian for 2 hours, but what would happen after that? In Neza's mind, he was sure that Yang Chen would make a big fuss as soon as he got out. After all, this was the capital of the Heavenly Court, and there were many experts here. Once they recognized him, they would definitely gang up on him. Perhaps Yang Chen would be able to use this opportunity to escape. If Yang Jian wanted to hunt down Yang Chen, He would have to at least take care of the many experts in the Heavenly Court's capital and the new Heavenly Court's pursuit before he could do so. According to Nez's own assessment, this was not a simple matter. Perhaps this was Yang Chen's biggest opportunity, and also the biggest reason why Yang Chen dared to kill Yang Jian 2 hours earlier to vent his anger. However, right now it was better to enjoy the scene of Yang Chen chopping Yang Jian and Yang Jian not being able to fight back. That scene must be very pleasing to the eye. Yang Jian did not expect that Yang Chen, this younger generation junior, really had such courage. He even dared to cut himself in his own territory. However, with his cultivation and seniority, just as Neza had predicted, running away was definitely not in line with his identity. He could only dodge and block, and even that wasn't appropriate. He could only take each of Yang Chen's attacks head-on without being able to fight back. It was all because of his pride. After cursing Yang Chen for being cunning in his mind, Yang Jian decisively took out his three-pointed, double-edged saber and held it horizontally in front of the Immortal Beheading Saber's blade. After all, the Immortal Beheading Saber was enhanced by Yazi, so its power was not simple. Although it wouldn't hurt Yang Jian, it would be a great humiliation for a Golden Immortal Junior to damage something on his body. However, no matter how confident Yang Jian was, no matter how high his cultivation was, he didn't expect that Yang Chen had also practiced the secret method of Kuai and had now reached the third realm. Yang Jian had seen many masters of Kuai's secret method, and he had also seen many who had reached the third realm. However, those masters were at least innumerable tribulation true immortals for tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. A junior at the intermediate stage of Golden Immortal was not enough to make him afraid. Moreover, in Yang Jian's eyes, Yang Chen was just a little guy who had practiced the yellow turban strongman body refining technique. According to common sense, with his cultivation, he should at most be in the realm of inverting C strength. The saber chopped on the handle of the three-pointed, double-edged saber. Yang Jian only felt a huge force coming from Yang Chen's saber, and he had a bad feeling in his heart. It was just that it was a little too late at this time. One hand could not resist such a turbulent force. With a bang, Yang Jian was firmly cut by the Immortal Beheading Saber. It was not the blade that cut Yang Jian's body, but the weight of the Immortal Beheading Saber itself plus the huge strength of Yang Chen and the bonus of Xiao Tian. The blow pushed Yang Jian's hand and the three-pointed, double-edged saber to his own body, and then he was hit by the handle of his own three-pointed, double-edged saber. Immediately afterward, Yang Jian's body flew out involuntarily like a cannonball. It was not until he flew for hundreds of feet away that Yang Jian's other hand grabbed the three-pointed, double-edged saber. He exerted force with both hands and finally stabilized the weapon. But at this time, Yang Chen's body had already appeared above Yang Jian, still holding the Immortal Beheading Saber high, and slashed at Yang Jian who was still in the air. Yang Jian was furious. Even when he was besieged by the masters of the Heavenly Court, he had not eaten such a big loss. Just as he was about to counterattack, Yang Chen's voice also passed to Yang Jian's ears at the same time. Senior said to let this younger generation junior make the first move. As soon as the voice arrived, Yang Jian's anger disappeared for a while. This was what he promised. Could it be that he was going to go back on his words in just a few breaths? At this point, Yang Jian's hands immediately converged, and the counterattack also turned into a block. Bang! There was another sound. Yang Jian's figure was directly smashed into the ground from the air. On the solid ground, only a human-shaped hole was left, and there was a horizontal crack formed by the three-pointed, double-edged saber. The Meishan six brothers could only be described as dumbfounded at this moment. They opened their mouths wide and were dumbfounded. How could the invincible Erlang Shin in their eyes become like this? Just as they were surprised, there was another loud noise and the dust flew. Yang Jian's figure flew into the sky like a cannonball again. This time, he was hit by Yang Chen from the ground to the sky. At this moment, Yang Chen's figure became like a ghost, constantly appearing around Yang Jian. In everyone's eyes, only Yang Chen's figure could be seen continuously swinging the immortal beheading saber. Meanwhile, Yang Jian directly turned into a baseball that was being hit everywhere. Here, there, and from time to time there would be a loud bang. With Yang Jian's speed, of course, he could easily dodge, but right now, he couldn't dodge. He could only take it head-on. Otherwise, it would be a big joke. As he blocked, Yang Jian's face was as black as ink. Chapter 2592. Dozens of times, Yang Chen waved the immortal beheading saber with all his strength, coupled with the increase of Shao Tian's power, brought Yang Jian a feeling that was by no means easy. Although Yang Jian's powerful strength made his arms not feel numb, his armor was not a powerful magic weapon. Yang Jian's power lay in his cultivation, a three-pointed double-edged saber, and a vertical third eye. If Shao Tiandog was not dead, there would still be a part of Shao Tiandog, but now there was only Yang Jian himself. Dozens of powerful attacks made Yang Jian's armor become tattered, and he had been smashed into the ground several times, also stained with a lot of dust. From this point of view, Yang Jian could be said to be covered in dust. But Yang Jian could only bear it at the moment, and he couldn't even avoid it. He could dodge, but it meant that in front of Neza, in front of his 6 brothers of the Maishan Mountain, he had to dodge the attack of a golden immortal junior. This was something that the arrogant Yang Jian could not bear. What came from Yang Chen's immortal beheading saber was not only pure power, but also a variety of complex attacks, which made Yang Jian admire the variety of attack methods of Yang Chen. Not to mention, when attacking under the ground, Yang Chen's immortal beheading saber could actually drive the power of the whole land to attack him. It should be known that this was his cave house magic weapon, not Yang Chen's. When withstanding Yang Chen's attack, Yang Jian also admired Yang Chen's attack method. This was an absolute genius. There was no doubt that he could make an attack comparable to the peak of Almighty Immortal with the cultivation of the intermediate Golden Immortal. It was a pity that this guy killed Shao Tiandog, otherwise, as Yang Jian said, they might be friends. After hundreds of consecutive powerful attacks, although Yang Jian was battered and exhausted, he was not so battered that he could not attend to one thing and lose sight of another. Every time he was able to block Yang Chen's attack, but he could not fight back. He was trapped in this promise, and could only passively bear the attack. Boom! Yang Jian suddenly felt that something was wrong. There were 2 more fire dragons around him, and the surrounding air seemed to start burning. Then the 2 fire dragons disappeared instantly, but his body involuntarily became hot and even hot. Come to think of it, this little fellow is also a fire elementalist and an alchemist. It was normal for a fire elementalist to have his own natal fire. If it was an ordinary cultivator, Yang Jian wouldn't have cared. At most, it would just be a powerful flame. So what? Unless Yang Chen's cultivation had reached the same level as the tip of his brush, no fire seed would be able to harm him. However, this fire seed was a little different. Yang Jian couldn't tell what kind of fire seed it was. What was even worse was that the fire seed was unable to withstand it at all. It began to burn on Yang Jian's weapon and armor. What was even more inconceivable was that Yang Jian even discovered that there seemed to be a tiny spark in his sea of consciousness. It was slowly invading his sea of consciousness like a prairie fire. If his sea of consciousness were to be incinerated, it would be a huge problem. If Erlang Shen Yang Jian's sea of consciousness were to be burnt by Yang Chen's fire, Yang Jian could just stretch out his neck and wait to be chopped off. Yang Jian snorted coldly and began to use his powerful divine sense to expel these fire seeds in his sea of consciousness. While the Yin-Yang heaven-burning fire was attacking, Yang Chen's immortal beheading saber did not stop. It was still chopping at Yang Jian's head and face. Yang Jian could only fend off the attacks in a flustered manner. He was in an extremely sorry state. Neza had already begun to clap his hands and stamp his feet and laugh wildly. He had seen Yang Chen's fire seed. With the strength of the red armillary sash, it could only block the burning of the yin-yang heaven-burning fire. Under Yang Jian's carelessness, he suffered a lot this time. This kind of scene, even in the millions of years since Neza and Yang Jian knew each other, they had never seen it. When would Erlang Shen, Immortal, be beaten to such a state? And he was beaten by a mere golden Immortal Junior. It was true that Yang Chen caught Yang Jian off guard, and it was done under the circumstance that Yang Jian promised not to fight back. But since Yang Jian agreed, he could not blame others. He could only pay for his own carelessness. The 6 Meishan brothers and more than 1,000 gods couldn't believe their eyes. Erlang Shen, who had always been invincible in their minds, was now so embarrassed and unbearable. It directly subverted their lofty image in their hearts. Was the fireball that was beaten and burned violently really their invincible Erlang Shen in the past? It was unknown how many times Yang Chen had slashed at Yang Jian. Yang Jian's whole body was completely shrouded in flames. Neza and the 6 Meishan brothers couldn't see Yang Jian's current appearance at all. But Yang Jian himself knew very well that his appearance must be very embarrassing. It was certain that Erlang Shen's exquisite armor had already been turned into tatters. Under the double action of the yin-yang heaven-burning fire and Yang Chen's immortal beheading saber, even the handle of the three-pointed, double-edged saber had slight cracks, not to mention the armor that was not a life-origin magic treasure. It had long been turned into pieces. Being able to hang on Erlang Shen's body, it was already because of Erlang Shen's powerful magic power. Under the series of attacks, Yang Jian finally didn't want to bear this situation where he couldn't resist at all and could only block. When Yang Chen slashed down again, Yang Jian dodged and avoided Yang Chen's blade. His whole body also flashed to the side. This was the first time Yang Jian dodged, which also meant that Yang Jian's patience had reached the limit. In the face of this situation, Yang Chen didn't say anything and directly slashed at the empty space. The immortal beheading saber instantly became longer, and a long hole appeared in the space of the cave. Yang Chen's figure flew out of the hole and instantly disappeared without a trace, leaving only a sentence that made Neza laugh wildly. "Thank you for your promise, Senior. There is still half an hour left." Yang Chen didn't do too much. As soon as he left, the yin-yang heaven-burning fire immediately retracted. The flames that surrounded Yang Jian's whole body also disappeared, and his sea of consciousness was no longer churning. However, Yang Jian was standing there like a beggar at the moment. His face was scorched black, and the armor on his body was in pieces. Several fragments also clearly showed deep knife marks. Although Yang Jian's body was unscathed, such an appearance was more unbearable than killing him. The next moment, Yang Jian disappeared from where he was. When he reappeared, he had returned to the handsome and elegant Erlang Shen. The armor on his body had also changed to the same exquisite style, but the appearance just now was clearly engraved in the hearts of Neza and the Meishan brothers. Neza completely ignored his image and laughed loudly. He kept laughing at Yang Jian and said, "There is still half an hour left. You can't break your promise." Ha 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 ha. Yang Jian's face was full of anger. He gritted his teeth and said in the direction where Yang Chen disappeared, "I'm going to kill him." Chapter 2593. Looking at Yang Jian's angry expression, Neza, who was very dissatisfied with Yang Jian at first, suddenly realized something. Oh no. Yang Jian was getting serious. Yang Jian said that he would chase Yang Chen for 100 years. He was definitely giving Yang Chen a chance out of respect for Neza and Ancestor Lu. It was also giving himself a way out. Otherwise, with Yang Jian's strength, why would he need 100 years to kill a golden immortal junior? Although Yang Chen was considered one of the best among the golden immortals, in front of Yang Jian, it was just a matter of a single slash. Chasing after him was simply a joke. It was estimated that Yang Jian himself knew that the death of the howling celestial dog could not be counted as Yang Chen's head, but after all, Yang Chen was the executor, so the death penalty could be avoided, But the punishment could not be escaped. Chasing for 100 years, it was also 100 years of fear for Yang Chen, a lesson, so that Yang Jian's heart was calm, and also a decision to let him step down. However, Yang Chen and Neza misunderstood Yang Jian's actions. They thought that Yang Jian wasn't giving him a way out. In Yang Chen's opinion, since he wasn't giving him a way out, he would make up for it before he died. That was why Yang Jian looked like a beggar just now. Now, Yang Jian was completely infuriated. He was beaten into a pig's head by a golden Immortal Junior in front of Neza and the 6 Maishan brothers. Of course, it was because he didn't fight back and only blocked, but it was also a great loss of face. It was inevitable that he would be angry. Let's see how far you can run in less than an hour. Yang Jian stared fiercely in the direction where Yang Chen left. The third eye on his forehead stared at Yang Chen's figure. Neza couldn't escape from his third eye, let alone Yang Chen. Neza was also worried. If anything happened to Yang Chen, Madame Bai and Ancestor Lu wouldn't let him go, not to mention the Dao Ancestor. He had to dispel Yang Jian's killing intent no matter what. Don't be a sore loser, Neza said to Yang Jian. Anyway, there was still half an hour left. Yang Jian couldn't do something like chasing Neza in advance. It was a good chance for him to say something. Back then, I couldn't kill him in 3 moves, so I had to spare his life. In order to dispel Yang Jian's killing intent, Neza had to expose his own scandal to ease Yang Jian's anger. As expected, Yang Jian's attention was attracted. He looked at Neza and said, "Although you were badly injured at that time, you weren't so weak that you couldn't even kill a golden Immortal Junior, right? Don't underestimate this young man." Neza said very seriously, "My spear was blocked by his immortal slaying saber. Although the red armillary sash caught up with him, he hid in the geographical map of mountains and rivers. The attack of the Heaven and Earth Ring was also blocked by him with a Tai Chi golden ball. 3 attacks failed. I'm not shameless enough to keep chasing after him, so I can only let him go. What's the matter with his fire seed?" When Yang Jian heard that Neza had also been disgraced, he couldn't help but feel a little closer. They had been friends for many years. At this time, he didn't need to be cautious when talking. He directly asked, "It's very strange." The red armillary sash was almost burned by his fire seed. Neza curled his lips and replied, "I'm also an expert in playing with fire, but I still can't do anything about his fire seed. This guy plays with fire. He even absorbed the fire seed on my Yin-Yang Firestorm wheels. It's said that his current fire seed is also amazing. It's at the legendary level." Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire? Yang Jian, a master at this level, was experienced and knowledgeable. Even Yang Chen had heard of the name of Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire when he was a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. Yang Jian naturally knew about it, so he directly asked. "It should be." Neza nodded. Although he hadn't confirmed it with Yang Chen, he had almost guessed. He used less than 3 months to absorb the fire seed in the wishful golden pagoda. He's already at the Grandmaster level in playing with fire. Interesting little guy. Listening to Neza's evaluation, Yang Jian couldn't help but show an interested smile. Few people at his age and cultivation level are braver than him. Neza followed Yang Jian's words and said, "Have you seen any masters in the immortal realm who dare to beat you up the moment they hear that you're going to chase them for 100 years? This was not Neza saying good things about Yang Chen. It was indeed the truth. Yang Jian's reputation was not much worse than Neza's. When Neza showed his identity, many true immortals were scared out of their wits and immediately knelt down to beg for mercy. Neza would only be more ruthless to Yang Jian. Which cultivator didn't smile carefully when they saw him? Only Yang Chen was different. When he heard that Yang Jian was going to chase him, he calmly drank with Yang Jian and even asked him to let him go first. If this was courage in the face of danger, then the fact that he took the opportunity to beat Yang Jian into a pig's head within 2 hours after Yang Jian promised to not attack him could only mean one thing: Yang Chen was really powerful. Indeed, he's got guts. Yang Jian was no longer angry. Although his third eye was still staring at Yang Chen, his tone was no longer as angry as before. Just now, he stopped you and didn't let you say it. Does he have some big shot supporting him? Big shot. Definitely a big shot. Neza said with a bitter smile. Since he doesn't want to say it, just pretend that you don't know. Since Neza called him a big shot, he was definitely not a nobody. Of course, Yang Jian knew this in his heart. This brat really has guts. After messing with me, he still dares to stay in the heavenly court's capital. Does he really think I won't kill him? Yang Jian's third eye was constantly staring at Yang Chen. Yang Chen's every move didn't escape his eyes. Seeing that Yang Chen was still in the heavenly court's capital, he couldn't help but ask curiously, does he really want to fight me with those guys? Neza also became nervous. If the entire heavenly court's capital and Yang Jian started fighting, Neza himself wouldn't stay out of it. Although Yang Chen could use this method to escape, this was another grudge that wouldn't rest until one of them was dead. Neza really didn't know what Yang Chen was thinking. It's about time, it's time for me to attack. Yang Jian twisted his neck and stretched his limbs expectantly. That guy had a good time just now. Let's see if he can still be happy now. When Yang Jian flew out, Neza also flew out. He was the one who caused this. If the heavenly court's experts really swarmed him, he wouldn't stay out of it. Although Neza didn't dare to say that he was indomitable, he still had this bit of responsibility. This guy actually came here? Yang Jian was surprised that Yang Chen chose a place to escape. He instantly understood why Yang Chen chose to leave when there was still an hour left. This distance was just right. Don't tell me he wants to go in. Neza was also shocked. Seeing Yang Chen smiling at them, a bad feeling arose in his heart again. Chapter 2594. Yang Chen indeed hadn't gone far. In fact, he was very close. It was just that no one expected him to be there. He was now at the entrance of the Immortal Executioner's platform. The entrance to the Immortal Realm was usually used to send prisoners in. There was a decorated archway inside, and past it was the Immortal Executioner's platform. Back then, Neza had hidden in the archway to escape the pursuit of the Immortal Realm's experts. Now that Yang Chen was standing under the archway, he could step into it at any time. There was no one else on the Immortal Executioner's platform except for Yang Chen. Yang Chen had just sent everyone else away. Even the maids and sisters in the Dragon Palace, Yang Chen also released them on the road just now, letting them return to the Pure Yang Palace. It wasn't the first time the maidservants were guarding Chunyang Palace, so it was a walk in the park. They didn't know what happened here, but they weren't worried knowing that Yang Chen was on the Immortal Executioner's platform. Yang Chen was the commander of the Immortal Executioner's platform, and this was his territory. Who would dare harm the commander of the Immortal Executioner's platform in the Heavenly Court's capital? Please forgive me for offending you, Senior. At the same time, he didn't forget to dig a pit for Neza. It's just that you don't give Neza face, so this younger generation junior took action out of anger. Please forgive me. Neza nodded. Senior, please forgive me. Neza almost spat out his saliva. How did this become avenging him? What a waste of his effort to help Yang Chen smooth things over and appease Yang Jian's anger. However, if you think about it carefully, if Yang Chen really had such a starting point, it would really make people very happy. Especially when he saw Yang Jian's face covered in dirt, it was even better than drinking a big bowl of iced lotus seed soup in the summer. You better think it through. Yang Jian did not intend to attack immediately. Instead, he looked at Yang Chen with interest and said, "Once you step in, you might not be able to come out." Previously, both Yang Jian and Neza had thought that Yang Chen would create an opportunity for them by alerting the experts of the Heavenly Court. They didn't expect Yang Chen to come directly to this place. The Immortal Beheading Platform was indeed a good place. As long as Yang Chen entered, forget 100 years, Even 1,000 years wouldn't be enough for Yang Jian to hunt him down. However, from this entrance, even if Yang Chen was an executioner, it was hard to say what would happen after entering. Now, Yang Jian was very sure that he really admired this junior. He was the only one in the world who dared to use words to oppress him and then beat him up. There was no one like him in the past, and there would be no one like him in the future. I want to go somewhere else. Yang Chen smiled bitterly. But I can't hide from Senior's pursuit for 100 years. When Senior catches up to me, he probably won't kill me immediately. He'll at least give me a good beating. I'm afraid of pain, so I'll hide first. Senior's words carry enormous weight. I'll wait to have a good chat with Senior when I come out. Yang Chen praised Yang Jian, then he cupped his hands at Neza, and then he took a step back, and his figure disappeared in the immortal beheading stage in an instant. Smart kid, I didn't expect there to be such a place. Neza couldn't help but praise. Neza hiding in the archway of the immortal beheading platform was already a stroke of genius. However, compared to Yang Chen swaggering into the immortal beheading platform, he was still lacking. Therefore, even though Yang Jian knew where Yang Chen was, he could only look at him and sigh. This period of 100 years, it was really easy for Yang Chen to escape. While Neza was thinking about this, Yang Jian, who was beside him, sneered and strode toward the entrance of the immortal beheading platform. Neza's eyes widened when he saw this. I've gone through all the dragon's lair and tiger's den. I've even caused trouble in the soaring heaven palace of the golden arches and the Queen Mother's jade pool. Do you think a mere immortal beheading platform can make me retreat? Yang Jian's body suddenly erupted with an unyielding fighting spirit. His 3 eyes shone with excitement. The 3 pointed, double-edged sabers trembled slightly as he strode toward the entrance of the immortal beheading platform. Without any hesitation, Yang Jian disappeared from the entrance of the immortal beheading platform under Neza's gaze. This series of events happened before Neza could say anything. The 6 Maishan brothers, who were not far behind, were stunned. How did Yang Jian walk into the immortal beheading platform in such a short time? The friendship between Yang Jian and the 6 Maishan brothers was not fake. As soon as Yang Jian went in, the 6 brothers were shocked, but they followed him without hesitation. However, they were stopped by Neza after a few steps. You don't have to go in. I'll go. Neza sighed and said, Erlang, you're really brave. I hid here for thousands of years, but I didn't dare to go any further. After sighing, Neza began to instruct the 6 Maishan brothers. You go to the Chunyang Palace and wait. If something happens, help out. If someone is blind, just kill them. I'll cover for you. That's Lu Chunyang's sect. Don't worry. If Neza wanted to go in person, it would naturally be much more convenient than the 6 Maishan brothers. The 6 Maishan brothers did not insist and nodded. Ha 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 ha. Neza also let out a presumptuous laugh. His figure changed, and he displayed his rare 3-headed and 6-armed body. He held the fire-tipped spear, the universe ring, and the armillary sash. He stepped on the wind-fire wheels and rushed into the immortal beheading platform with a murderous aura. Before entering, Neza understood that Yang Chen had nothing to fear. He was the executioner of the immortal beheading platform, and he was later appointed as the commander of the immortal beheading platform. It could be said that this area was completely under Yang Chen's jurisdiction. He was sure that there would be no danger. As for coming out, it would probably not be a big problem. Why did Neza have to show up back then? Wasn't it because Yang Chen had discovered Neza while refining the immortal beheading platform? Neza had no choice but to come out and kill Yang Chen. Since Yang Chen had already started refining the immortal beheading platform, he could just drag Neza and Yang Jian along with him for a few hundred years. How could he not be able to refine it? When that time came, he could come out whenever he wanted. Although Yang Chen was young, he really took care of everything. He had thought of a way out in such a short time. Even Neza had to admire him. Since Yang Chen and Yang Jian had already gone in, Neza had to go in as well. He wanted to see what was inside the immortal beheading platform, which made the entire immortal world pale at the mention of it. He might even see those guys who had been killed inside. While thinking about this, Neza's figure had already passed through the immortal beheading platform's archway and rushed inside. With the archway as the boundary, the inside and outside were two different worlds. From the outside, the archway looked like a dense fog. Neza's figure passed through the fog and his eyes lit up. Chapter 2595. The inside of the immortal beheading platform was not big, but it was not small either. In addition to the square that could easily accommodate thousands of prisoners, the huge immortal beheading platform was also very eye-catching. The first thing Neza saw was the square and the platform. However, he did not look at them for a second. Instead, he looked at the two people standing there. One was Yang Chen, who was still facing this direction. His smiling eyes gave people a very strange feeling, as if he was the owner of this place. Of course, this was also the truth. Yang Chen was both the commander of the immortal beheading platform and the executioner inside. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was the owner. The other person was, of course, Yang Jian. To Neza's surprise, he did not see Yang Jian being suppressed by the immortal beheading platform. He still held the three-pointed, double-edged saber on his back and faced Yang Chen. His fighting intent was like a volcano erupting. Before Neza could take a closer look, he immediately felt a terrible pressure. This was a kind of pressure that came from the inside of the immortal slaying platform. The pressure was very strong, and it also felt like it was binding him. Even if Neza used all his strength to resist, he could not resist this omnipresent binding. It was no wonder that it was so famous that so many experts in the immortal world trembled in fear upon hearing its name. The immortal slaying platform was indeed the immortal slaying platform. The things that the Tao ancestor refined were indeed worthy of their reputation. Neza praised it, but he soon found that the restraint did not completely restrain him, nor did it imprison him. Instead, it suppressed his strength from the peak of infinite tribulation true immortal to the middle stage of golden immortal, which was equivalent to Yang Chen's strength. He believed that Yang Jian must have the same feeling. Obviously, this was Yang Chen's intention to let everyone fight fairly on the same level. The reason why Neza could understand the situation was that he had seen hundreds of bound guys on the other side. They were all at the level of celestial immortals or mysterious immortals, which could only be found in the spiritual realm. They had no chance or qualification to enter the immortal beheading platform. There was only one possibility for them to appear here. They had entered from the place where the immortal beheading platform dumped their corpses. They were bound to death row by the immortal beheading platform. However, Yang Jian and Neza did not receive such treatment. It must be the result of Yang Chen showing mercy. After enduring the restraint and pressure of the immortal slaying platform, Neza absolutely believed that as long as Yang Chen was willing, the immortal slaying platform could easily suppress them to the level of mortals and let Yang Chen do whatever he wanted. It's a good place. Hearing about it is better than meeting it in person. Yang Jian nodded his head in praise. The battle intent on his body became more and more exuberant. Teaching you a lesson here is not in vain. Yang Chen stood on the opposite side, nodded at Neza, and saluted to Yang Jian. Thank you for your help, senior. That was what he said, but he didn't say much about what he had helped. Senior's three-pointed double-edged saber is famous all over the world. Junior doesn't dare to be arrogant, so please forgive me for offending you. Yang Chen took a few steps back, revealing a saber holder that he had been hiding behind. Only then did Neza see that there was a very powerful saber holder behind Yang Chen. On the double dragon holder, there was a very ordinary-looking saber with a ghost head. In the immortal slaying platform, one could not detect anything with divine sense at all. Yang Chen's position was very clever, just enough to block Neza and Yang Jian's sight. As soon as Yang Chen moved away, both of them saw the saber with a ghost head. Yang Jian and Neza were very familiar with the style of the saber. It was obviously Yang Chen's natal magic weapon, the Immortal slaying saber. However, this saber was slightly different from Yang Chen's natal magic weapon. It didn't look like Yang Chen's saber, which was black and a little green. In addition, compared to Yang Chen's Immortal slaying saber, this saber had the same style, but it was too ordinary. It was so ordinary that people would subconsciously ignore it. If ordinary people saw Yang Chen's Immortal slaying saber and this saber, they would definitely make a judgment in their hearts. Yang Chen's Immortal slaying saber had the upper hand and was more valuable. However, Neza and Yang Jian didn't think so. In their courtyard, this more ordinary saber with a ghost head was more worthy of fear. Even if they didn't rely on their eyesight, as long as they knew where they were, even a blind person would know which was the best, Yang Chen's natal magic weapon or the saber inside. To put it bluntly, Yang Chen's Immortal slaying saber had originally been based on the appearance of this saber. It could even be said that he had blatantly copied this saber. Who was stronger and who was weaker, did it need to be said? Yang Chen stretched out his hand, and his natal magic weapon appeared in it. Then, Yang Chen grabbed the real Immortal slaying saber with his right hand, and put his natal magic weapon on the saber holder with his left hand. The saber holder supported by 2 dragons was also very beneficial to his Immortal slaying saber. What's more, close contact could allow the second primordial spirit to get closer to the Immortal slaying stage and refine it faster. Xiao Tian had appeared silently and couldn't wait to hold the real Immortal slaying saber in his mouth. This saber was the strongest magic weapon that Xiao Tian had ever come into contact with. Even the owner's natal magic weapon was not 100 times worse. He was so excited that he couldn't wait to use this saber to cut the world. Holding the real Immortal slaying saber, Yang Chen was also filled with emotion. This saber, he had not touched it for more than 4,000 years. Holding it in his hand again, he felt the sense of harmony with the Immortal slaying stage and the Immortal slaying saber. After absorbing tens of thousands of executioners, Yang Chen was also full of emotions. Unfortunately, it was not the time to be emotional. There was still a furious Yang Jian standing in front of him, waiting to teach him a lesson. Behind him, there was also Neza, who would definitely join the battle if there was a chance to fight. For now, it was better to have a good fight with them. Inside the Immortal slaying stage, under the control of Yang Chen, Yang Jian and Neza were suppressed to the middle stage of Golden Immortal, which was exactly the same as Yang Chen's cultivation. With this equal basis, Yang Chen would never be afraid of either Yang Jian or Neza. Fortunately, the Immortal slaying stage could still be controlled by him. The identity of the commander and executioner, plus the refining of the entrance of the Immortal slaying stage and the mouth of the corpse disposal, made his control of the Immortal slaying stage reach an unprecedented height, so he did not bind the 2 seniors. However, whether it was Yang Jian's 3-pointed double-edged saber or Neza's fire-tipped spear, universe ring and armillary sash, they were not comparable to Yang Chen's Immortal slaying saber. As a last resort, Yang Chen could only use the real Immortal slaying saber. Senior, I'm sorry. When Yang Chen faced Yang Jian again with the real Immortal slaying saber, there was no despair in the face of a completely unattainable opponent. Here, in the Immortal slaying stage, in his own territory, Yang Chen had a chance to have an absolutely fair fight with Yang Jian. Chapter 2596. Their cultivation was the same, and the magic weapon they used, the real Immortal beheading saber, would not be worse than the 3-pointed, double-edged saber. The difference was their physical bodies. Yang Chen had only passed the Xian Immortal Tribulation, while Yang Jian had passed the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Tribulation. However, Yang Chen's Kuai's secret technique had been cultivated to the 3rd level, while Yang Jian did not have a similar body refining technique. Thus, the 2 sides were tied again. Even Yang Chen had the Tai Chi Golden Ball, a powerful protective magic weapon, which could barely be considered as having the upper hand. However, the battle was not only about cultivation and magic weapons, but also about experience. Yang Chen firmly believed that even if he had 10,000 years of experience in his previous life, plus more than 4,000 years of cultivation in this life, it was definitely not comparable to Yang Jian and Neza's hundreds of years of battle experience. In his own territory, Yang Chen did not have to worry about his own life. Then, the battle experience of Yang Jian and Neza was a tool for Yang Chen to sharpen himself. He believed that even if the two of them knew this, they would definitely be willing to fight with him to their heart's content. It was for no other reason than to teach him a good lesson to vent his anger. As a person who had died once, how could Yang Chen not understand that the promise of being hunted down by Yang Jian for 100 years was a great way for him to step down? While letting Yang Jian step down, it could also be regarded as a small lesson for Yang Chen. After all, Yang Chen was the executioner who killed the celestial dog. Now Yang Chen was giving them a chance. Anyway, he was thick-skinned. As long as he did not die, they could do whatever they wanted in the Immortal beheading platform. When Yang Chen took the Immortal beheading saber and said that he had offended Yang Jian, Yang Jian had already waved his three-pointed, double-edged saber. He jumped high and chopped down at Yang Chen's head. Yang Chen did not want to be outdone. He took the real Immortal beheading saber and fought with Yang Jian. This was a battle opportunity where Yang Chen could make an unscrupulous shot, and Yang Jian could also make an unscrupulous shot. Soon Yang Jian indulged in it. Countless years of battle experience were really useful. Even if Yang Chen took the real Immortal beheading saber and Yang Chen had the protection of the Tai Chi golden ball, Yang Jian only relied on the three-pointed, double-edged saber to turn Yang Chen into a target in a short time. Not long ago, the scene of Yang Chen beating Yang Jian was reversed. Yang Jian took the three-pointed, double-edged saber and kept beating Yang Chen baseball. No matter how powerful Yang Chen's Immortal beheading saber was, it could not stop Yang Jian's all-pervasive attack. The Tai Chi golden ball had indeed become a ball. It could barely protect Yang Chen's body from being beaten too hard. Occasionally, Yang Chen could also fight back. However, that was only by chance. No matter how well Yang Chen protected himself, no matter how hard Yang Chen resisted, he could not stop Yang Jian's attack. The violent beating lasted for more than a month. After more than a month, even if Yang Chen had the Dragon Palace to replenish his spiritual power, he could not bear it any longer. Yang Jian's cultivation was suppressed, but his total spiritual power was still at the level of the peak infinite tribulation true immortal. He almost did not feel tired. Even if he could not absorb any spiritual power in the Immortal beheading platform, he did not have to worry about not having enough spiritual power to deal with Yang Chen, who was at the intermediate golden immortal stage. Stop! After Yang Chen was sent flying and fell heavily on the ground, he finally found a chance to shout, "I can't take it anymore, let me have a rest." The battle with Yang Jian was not evenly matched at all. Strictly speaking, Yang Chen had been abused for more than a month. Both his body and spirit had reached the limit and he needed a rest. Yang Jian stopped the attack decisively. To be honest, he had vented his anger by beating Yang Chen for more than a month. Every pore on his body felt comfortable. Anyway, there was still a long time to go. He could let Yang Chen have a rest and then continue to beat him. As Yang Chen thought, a guy who was tied up and could not move flew to the Immortal beheading platform. Yang Chen jumped up and casually said that every debt had its debtor. Then, he chopped off the head of the unlucky celestial immortal whose name he did not even know. How could there be no blood when the real Immortal beheading saber was used? While Yang Chen stopped, Neza could not hold back anymore. He flew forward and replaced Yang Chen's position. He shouted at Yang Jian, activated his 3 heads and 6 arms, and fought with Yang Jian. Neza and Yang Jian were both good. At their level, how could they have a chance to fight to their heart's content? Only in the Immortal beheading platform, where their cultivation was suppressed to the same middle-stage golden immortal, and they did not have to worry about the leakage of their aura, nor did they have to worry about breaking things around them. Could they enjoy themselves? They had long wanted to fight to their heart's content. Now that they had this opportunity, how could they let it go? There was no hatred between them. They just appreciated each other and wanted to fight. Now that there was a chance, they would naturally fight to their heart's content. When fighting with Yang Chen, Yang Jian could be completely playful. But when facing Neza, who had 3 heads and 6 arms, he could not be more serious. It was no longer a case of one side being abused by the other without any chance to fight back. The two were evenly matched, and the fight was unusually lively and brilliant. Yang Chen's eyes had long been attracted by the battle between Yang Jian and Neza, and even he was very unkind to record the battle between the two with a jade slip. Even if he showed the battle scene of such an expert to his wives and concubines, it would still be a rare battle experience. If it was in the sect, only the disciples with the highest contribution to the sect would be qualified to see it. Both Neza and Yang Jian, at their level, it was really hard to find an opponent. It was a little lonely at the top. Unless it was something like the rebellion in the heavenly court, they would not fight with all their strength. Usually, they would not have such a chance. Now that the two were fighting excitedly, they used all kinds of small tricks without any scruples. The more they fought, the more comfortable they felt. They couldn't help but laugh while fighting. It was really too enjoyable. Yang Chen watched and learned from the side, secretly recording. He was also very busy, completely ignoring the red and purple patches on his face. Those were the souvenirs left by Yang Jian for Yang Chen. They were also his retribution for beating Yang Jian up before. I'm rich, Yang Chen muttered and kept recording. The more he watched, the more excited he became. The two's movements were too fast. Sometimes, even with Yang Chen's comprehension ability, he couldn't appreciate the subtlety of it. He could only record it first and slowly comprehend it in the future when he had time. While excited, Yang Chen was also regretting. If he had known that he could control the immortal beheading platform to this level, he would have waited for Ancestor Lu to come back and enter together. He believed that if the three of them fought together, it would definitely make Yang Chen happy. This time, entering the immortal beheading platform was really profitable. Chapter 2597. Yang Jian and Neza had been fighting for more than a month, and they didn't show any signs of stopping. The two of them were also having a good time. With such a degree of suppression, even if their attacks landed on each other, it wouldn't cause much damage. It was really rare in the celestial world to be able to let them do whatever they wanted without any scruples. Yang Jian and Neza only stopped when Yang Chen asked them to stop and let the two seniors take a break. Yang Chen didn't dare to be slow and immediately opened up the square of the Dragon Palace. There was enough good wine but no good dishes. He could only grab some 10,000-year-old ginseng and Ganoderma as a side dish to serve the two seniors first. If he had known earlier, he would have left a few maidservants of Madame Bai here. Yang Chen didn't need to do these things himself. However, before entering the immortal slaying platform, Yang Chen wasn't sure how good he could control it. The only trump card he could use to guide them was that he would definitely be able to leave after refining the immortal slaying platform. It was too late to regret now. He couldn't go out and ask them to come in. He definitely couldn't go out now. However, even if he could go out now, Yang Chen wouldn't be willing to go out even if he was beaten to death. If he missed this opportunity, what other opportunity would there be for Yang Jian and Neza to teach him? Don't look at Yang Jian beating himself very hard, but every time Yang Jian made a move, Yang Chen could see it clearly. How he was hit and how he couldn't avoid it was very clear. Yang Chen wasn't a fool. How could he not understand that Yang Jian wanted to help him? No one who reached a high position in the celestial world was a fool. Putting everything else aside, just Neza and Ancestor Lu were enough to make Yang Jian smart enough to give them face. Moreover, there was also Neza, who was even stronger than these two, who had yet to be mentioned. Obviously, Yang Jian wasn't a fool. After eating and resting, Yang Chun immediately changed his target to Neza. He wanted to challenge Neza. Neza was feeling that he had not fought to his heart's content. Coincidentally, Yang Chun had relied on the Dao ancestor to force him to give up on killing Yang Chun after failing to succeed in 3 strikes. He was also holding back his anger. If he had this opportunity, why would he not take it back? Therefore, Yang Chun became Neza's baseball again. This time, there were 3 baseball bats: the fire-tipped spear, the universe ring, and the armillary sash. Back then, these 3 super magic treasures attacked Yang Chun once each time. But at that time, Neza's injury was so serious that he almost couldn't save Yang Chun. Only then did they unleash their true power. Even the yin-yang wind-fire wheel gave Yang Chun countless memories of pain to the bone marrow. When Neza truly unleashed his power, even 100 Yang Chuns wouldn't be enough to stop him. Just like when he faced Yang Jian, Yang Chun had almost no strength to resist. The days in the Immortal slaying platform became regular. Basically, Yang Chun was a target that Yang Jian and Neza took turns to beat up. Every time, either of them would beat him up until he couldn't take it anymore and shouted to stop. His days were miserable. However, what was even more terrifying were the hundreds of prisoners on death row who were tied up in the square. They were just greedy ghosts who had come from the spiritual world. However, every time Yang Chun used the Immortal slaying saber, he would randomly pick out one of them and behead him without saying anything. Of course, it was fun to watch Yang Chun get beaten up. However, after they were satisfied with the sight, it would be their disaster. After beating up Yang Chun, Yang Jian and Neza would compete with each other and fight to their heart's content. They hadn't had an opponent for a long time. When they met an evenly matched opponent, their frozen realm even began to loosen and showed signs of improvement. Yang Chun learned a lot from Yang Jian and Neza, and Yang Jian and Neza could also improve their cultivation by comparing with each other. After a few rounds, the 3 of them completely agreed that it was really the right choice to enter the Immortal slaying platform. Presumably, apart from absorbing the combat experience of Yang Jian and Neza, Yang Chun also got an unexpected surprise. After coming to the Immortal world, it was as if the medicinal power of the heavenly essence pill no longer existed, and the improvement of his cultivation was not fast at all. Although Yang Chun's improvement of cultivation was faster than 99% of the cultivators, it was completely incomparable to when he was in the spiritual world. Yang Chun could understand this. After all, the higher one's cultivation was, the harder it was to improve. The difficulty of advancing from an earth immortal to a heaven immortal was completely different from that of advancing from an early-stage golden immortal to a mid-stage golden immortal. However, after being beaten up by Yang Jian and Neza, the medicinal power of the heavenly essence pill in Yang Chun's body seemed to be stimulated. The more he was beaten up, the more surging power Yang Chun could feel in his body. This was an unexpected surprise for Yang Chun. After being beaten up so many times, Yang Chun certainly made some progress. After countless rounds, Yang Chun finally had some effective counterattacks in the process of being beaten up and abused. If Yang Chun could have an effective counterattack once in 10,000 attacks before, now he could fight back once in 100 attacks. Yang Jian and Neza were also very surprised. Yang Chun was like a huge living sponge, absorbing their combat experience crazily and combining it with his own reality to use it in battle. Neza was fine as he had always been a loner, but Yang Jian was extremely amazed. The 6 Meishan brothers were also taught a lot by Yang Jian, but compared to Yang Chun, their comprehension was like a group of people on the ground and one in the sky. As for those who were personally enlightened by him, not to mention, compared with Yang Chun, those guys were completely not. It must be known that Yang Jian never said a word in the process of the battle, and personally carried out a word of advice. It was with the feeling in the process of the battle that Yang Chen could comprehend to this point, which made Yang Jian very tempted. If there was such a disciple, how many things could be saved? Neza had the same thought as Yang Jian. Facing such a talented junior, this was the first time he had the idea of accepting a disciple. Unfortunately, Yang Chen was already a disciple of Lu Ox-Nosed and was his disciple's grand disciple. Neza couldn't snatch Lu Ox-Nosed's disciple's grand disciple because it wasn't worth it for a disciple to be a few generations lower than Lu Ox-Nosed. It was in this tacit understanding of the battle and the process of teaching each other that everyone gained something. Yang Chen was happy that he was able to be guided by two top-grade powerful beings. At the same time, he also delightfully found that both his Kuai's secret knowledge and Taiji Golden Ball had been improved to different extents. This was another surprise. As long as he fought, he would be beaten up day and night, and not a single part of his body could escape from being beaten up. In this situation, it was simply like two powerful experts were fighting against Yang Chen. Kuai's secret body refining cultivation method. It would be strange if it didn't improve. Chapter 2598. The same principle applied to the Tai Chi Golden Ball. The Tai Chi Golden Ball had been a protective magic weapon since it appeared in the world, and it was closely integrated with Yang Chen's body. This was something that Yang Jian and Neza's protective magic weapons could not compare with. All magic weapons could be repaired or even improved after being damaged by external forces, and the Tai Chi Golden Ball was no exception. However, unlike ordinary protective magic weapons, the Tai Chi Golden Ball was half integrated with Yang Chen's body. As long as Yang Chen's body was still there, the magic weapon could be repaired at any time. Compared with ordinary magic weapons that needed to be refined and repaired, it was many times more powerful. Yang Chen's cultivation was improving, his fighting experience was increasing, and the protection of the Tai Chi Golden Ball was also improving. Not only did the protection ability improve, but also the fighting experience that Yang Chen learned from Yang Jian and Neza. He was very particular about which places to focus on and which places could be ignored. In the past, the Tai Chi Golden Ball was an all-round protection. Now, after Yang Chen regained control, it became a focused protection. Not only did it save Yang Chen's spiritual power, but its protection ability was also greatly improved. In the battle, Yang Chen could now make sure that at least half of the attacks of Yang Jian and Neza fell on the Tai Chi Golden Ball, which was the key part of the Golden Ball's protection. If the level of the Tai Chi Golden Ball was not too low, and Yang Chen's cultivation was too low, it would not be difficult for him to block the attacks of the three-pointed double-edged sword and the fire-tipped spear. Another improvement that surprised Yang Chen was the cultivation of his divine sense. Inside the Immortal Executioner's divine sense, neither Yang Jian nor Neza could detect far. This was the limitation of the Immortal Executioner's divine sense. But for Yang Chen, this limitation was meaningless. No matter how powerful the Immortal Executioner's divine sense was, it could not suppress him. In order to guard against Yang Jian and Neza's omnidirectional attacks, Yang Chen also used all his divine sense threads. They were extremely sharp in order to capture the attack trajectory of the two masters, so that he could judge the landing point in advance and defend. However, the actions of the two fellows were too fast. Even with the help of his spiritual awareness to help him cheat, Yang Chen could not seize the initiative. On the contrary, in the process of this frequent attack, his spiritual sense was tempered like never before. The result of the tempering was that after a few decades, Yang Chen's divine sense cultivation finally had another breakthrough, from the late stage of Almighty Immortal to the peak of Almighty Immortal. Fighting day and night, Yang Chen's battle experience, combat power, and cultivation soared. At the same time, the refinement of the immortal slaying platform was also carried out in an orderly manner. Yang Chen's natal magic treasure, the immortal slaying saber, had always been placed on the twin dragons of the real immortal slaying saber. Relying on the power of the immortal slaying platform itself to nourish the fake immortal slaying saber, Yang Chen's second primordial spirit was also able to come into contact with the immortal slaying platform from a close distance. Not long after Yang Chen ascended to the immortal realm, he had initially refined the entrance to the immortal realm. At that time, he had even alarmed Neza, who was hiding in the archway. As long as the initial refinement was completed, Yang Chen's second primordial spirit could refine the immortal slaying platform at any time and anywhere. For so many years, the second primordial spirit had never stopped this work. Under the effect of Yang Chen's powerful spiritual sense, the refining work was not slow. After Yang Chen's spiritual sense cultivation improved, the refining work became faster and faster. At the same time, it was placed on the twin dragons, so that the second primordial spirit could refine the immortal slaying platform at the closest distance, without the loss of distance, and the refining efficiency was also greatly improved. With this two-pronged approach, Yang Chen saw the hope of refining the immortal slaying platform faster. However, it was only a hope. The immortal slaying platform in the immortal realm was so powerful that after entering the immortal slaying platform for decades, Yang Chen could only refine about 1/10 of the progress. According to this refining speed, it was impossible to refine it within 100 years. If he could not refine the immortal slaying platform, it meant that he would not be able to get out within 100 years. Conservatively, from the time he entered the immortal slaying platform, it would take at least 500 years for Yang Chen to completely refine the immortal slaying platform. After Yang Chen knew about this matter, he also had to communicate with the two seniors, Yang Ku and Neza. He had to let them know. Otherwise, if he let them know that he had cheated them for hundreds of years, he didn't know how furious they would be. When that time came, Yang Chen would definitely not be able to get away with it. Anyway, he would definitely be beaten and abused for hundreds of years. Yang Chen was also straightforward. After figuring it out, he immediately explained the situation to the two seniors, Yang Jian and Neza. Hearing Yang Chen's explanation, Yang Jian fell silent for a moment. No one knew what he was thinking, but Neza looked like he didn't care. "It doesn't matter. Anyway, my injuries haven't healed yet. I can take this opportunity to recuperate." Neza indeed didn't care, but suddenly he seemed to think of something and said, "I haven't treated my injuries for a long time. I was so excited that I forgot about it. Hurry, take out your pill furnace." As Yang Chen took out the pill furnace to help Neza heal, Yang Jian's attention was also attracted. He had never seen such a novel healing method. He didn't understand it, so he deliberately asked about it. Only after hearing this incredible healing method from Yang Chen, he couldn't help but be amazed. Yang Jian was also a knowledgeable person. He soon discovered that the 3-star alchemy furnace was actually made by Fulishu himself, and he became interested in it. After hearing about Yang Chen's great achievements in alchemy, he directly asked Yang Chen to help him refine healing elixirs. Yang Jian had as many ordinary elixirs as he wanted. There were also a few excellent alchemy masters among so many people, but they had not entered the 9th level alchemy master. However, the same 8th grade alchemy master, the level of the ordinary 8th grade alchemy master and Yang Chen were too far apart. When Yang Chen carefully refined the 8th level internal inspection liquid for Yang Jian to use, Yang Jian's injuries quickly improved in a short time, and the effect was almost immediate. After this time, Yang Jian didn't even ask for healing elixirs. He also wanted to experience Neza's healing method. Every time Yang Chen healed Neza, Yang Jian would also enter the alchemy furnace to be refined. They were all masters. Who didn't know? After being refined in the alchemy furnace of Fulishu for hundreds of years, he would more or less be contaminated with some aura of Fulishu. Even Yang Jian wouldn't complain about this kind of good thing. During the days of fighting, there were many healing processes. The time when Yang Chen was beaten was relatively much shorter, but the combat experience was not reduced at all. All of it was absorbed by Yang Chen crazily. As time went by, Yang Chen's cultivation was getting higher and higher. Yang Jian and Neza's injuries were getting closer and closer to recovery, and more parts of the immortal beheading stage were being refined. Chapter 2599. Every time Yang Chen fought with Neza or Yang Jian, he would randomly kill a condemned prisoner who was tied up in the immortal beheading platform. These guys brought this upon themselves. When they were in the spiritual realm, they coveted the immortal beheading saber that they saw at the corpse disposal entrance. They entered the immortal beheading platform of their own accord. So far, there were only 4 people in the immortal realm who dared to enter the immortal beheading platform. One was Yang Chen, another was Yang Jian, another was Neza, and the last one was the Tao ancestor. These guys dared to rush into such a dangerous place recklessly. If they didn't die, who else would? Be it Yang Jian or Neza, they didn't even look at these guys. They were just a group of people who were about to die. There was no need to pay attention to them. As for why Yang Chen wanted to kill them after the fight, it was because the immortal beheading saber would definitely see blood when it was used. The immortal beheading saber in the immortal beheading platform deserved this treatment. However, there was one guy that Yang Chen didn't touch. When he was the last one left, Yang Chen seemed to think of it and brought the guy in front of him. In the immortal beheading platform, it was too easy. As long as Yang Chen thought about it, he could do it. The Zhao family? Yang Chen asked the guy who was on the verge of collapse in a relaxed manner. This guy's cultivation was very high. He was a golden immortal, and he was definitely a golden immortal who had passed the tribulation. There shouldn't be any golden immortals in the immortal realm who would be stupid enough to enter the immortal beheading platform. The few exceptions were almost all here. So, this guy could only come from the corpse disposal entrance in the spiritual realm. Yang Chen knew the identities of the golden immortals who had passed the tribulation in the lower world from all the major sect, but he didn't know this guy. Apart from the Zhao family, could there be other forces? Not to mention Yang Chen's current cultivation, just the obvious characteristics of Yang Jian and Neza were enough to make anyone who had stayed in the immortal realm and seen them for a long time unable to recognize them. At the thought of facing these 2 ferocious people, no matter how strong his nerves were, how long could he remain tense? This wasn't something that had happened in just a day or 2. First, they had been trapped in the immortal slaying plateau, then bound and unable to move for over 1,000 years. It wasn't easy for them to see a few people, 2 of whom were peerless villains from the immortal world, and the other was a notorious executioner. Seeing these people, no matter how powerful they were, they would still lose half of their souls. If that was all, it would have been fine. The problem was that in the next 100 years, every time Yang Chen made a move, he would randomly pick out an unlucky fellow. Without asking about the cause and effect, he would behead the person for every debt. He did not even have the chance to beg for mercy. He watched this scene for hundreds or even thousands of times in a row. He was worried that he would be the next one, especially when it was his turn. Especially when the people around him decreased one by one until he was the only one left, that kind of fear would be magnified to the greatest. Therefore, when his figure directly appeared on the high platform of the immortal slaying platform, even a golden immortal who was undergoing tribulation was on the verge of collapse. Yes. Under the gaze of the 3 villains, the only surviving prisoner finally had a chance to speak, and he admitted it without hesitation. What is the Zhao family planning? Yang Chen asked quickly. He wanted to know as much as he could while this guy was on the verge of collapse. Where is the Zhao family hiding in the immortal world? In a half-days, the golden immortal of the Zhao family finally revealed many facts that shocked even Yang Jian and Neza. Since this golden immortal was sent to the spiritual world as a confidant, he was definitely a real core disciple of the Zhao family. It was very normal for him to know some things that others did not. However, when this confidant of the Zhao family revealed the Zhao family's plan, Even Yang Jian and Neza were shocked speechless. The innumerable tribulation true immortal was the limit of cultivation that Yang Chen knew before. No matter how powerful the experts he had seen, Yang Jian, Neza, Ancestor Lu, and so on, were all in this range. However, once again, a word that Neza accidentally said caught Yang Chen's attention for a long time. That word was called becoming a sage. He accidentally said it when he was talking about Ancestor Lu's arrangement. Yang Chen understood that the innumerable tribulation true immortal was not the peak. At least there was a sage realm above it. Now, Yang Chen knew that there was a sage realm above the innumerable tribulation true immortal. In the whole immortal world, it was estimated that only the Tao ancestor could reach this realm. But that might be in the past. The current Tao ancestor also cultivated all the way from the mortal world and had not reached that level yet. That was a realm that all experts who reached the peak of the innumerable tribulation true immortal dreamed of. However, that realm was not something that could be reached through cultivation. It required an unimaginable amount of merit. Yang Chen suddenly regretted. If he did not give the merit to the Tao ancestor, would he be able to become a sage immediately after ascending to the immortal world? But in the blink of an eye, Yang Chen returned to normal. There was nothing to regret. It was too easy to get that kind of merit. If becoming a sage was so easy, would people like Yang Jian, Neza, and Ancestor Lu be unable to find a way? Would the Tao ancestor be willing to be killed for no reason? And the three realms that Yang Chen knew were not just the three realms. At least, Yang Chen knew that there was a demon realm and a monster realm. They were not in the mortal world, the spiritual world, and the immortal world, but they were connected to one of the three realms. And these two realms had been taken by Gong Sunling and refined in the geographical map of mountains and rivers. Be it the demon realm or the monster realm, they were real realms. Although the geographical map of mountains and rivers was not comparable to the complete three realms, it could be called 2.5 realms. The mortal world and the spiritual world were connected by a realm, and the immortal world was no exception. Yang Jian and Neza vaguely knew that it should be called the Holy Realm, which was the realm where the sages lived. The Zhao family did not want the Holy Realm. To be honest, the Zhao family was not stupid enough to challenge the experts of the Holy Realm. But by chance, they found another independent world in the immortal world. In other words, it was not an independent world, but just a half-world. However, this was enough to make the Zhao family wild with joy. What made them even more ecstatic was that this half-world was very likely to transform into a complete realm. And to transform from a half-world to a complete realm, some extremely harsh conditions were needed, so harsh that it was almost the same as challenging the sages of the Holy Realm. But at that time, the ancestors of the Zhao family suddenly realized that a big shot in the immortal world had made a fatal mistake, and injected demon chi into the demon realm and the monster realm. Suddenly, the harsh conditions didn't seem so harsh anymore. The golden immortal expert did not know how the transformation was going to happen, and what the conditions were. He was only a golden immortal, a core disciple, and was not qualified to know more secrets. However, he vaguely knew that the upheaval of the heavenly court was definitely related to the Zhao family. There was the shadow of the Zhao family hidden deeply behind it.